Imagine you are an ordinary schoolboy Seiji Managi who is just trying to survive another boring lecture. Our guy is one of those legends who believes that today is the perfect day for a nap right in the middle of the lesson. But his dream is interrupted by a mysterious wave flash and a whisper of a voice about a blessing. He suddenly opens his eyes, but instead of a desk, bubbles float around him. Nagi panics. He realizes that he is deep underwater and he needs to get to the surface as soon as possible before he drowns. He tries to move, but his arms and legs do not obey at all, while a huge fish is staring closely at him. This is not just a glitch, and with shock he understands. He has literally become the water itself. His vision expands, a top view opens over the entire area, as if he is looking through a drone. A stream of information pours into his consciousness, as if he is downloading the entire wiki of the world. He learns that he has reincarnated as the great spirit of water, and this huge lake is now his true physical body. Several days pass while he tries to digest the fact that human life has officially ended. Honestly, being a lake is pure pleasure. The sunlight warms so nicely and there is no stress at all. Strange animals began to visit his shores, even that horned hare, which looks like a rare gotcha pull. He understands his water is an elite trophy because it can heal any injury or disease. Suddenly, the quiet, peaceful atmosphere breaks the local fauna, senses something approaching. Two human children appear, and Nagi realizes these are the first humans he has seen in this new world. The children carry a basket of medicinal herbs, but it looks like they are too scared to use them. The boy Lumina prays to the lake, "Great Spirit, please heal our mother's illness." They gathered all the herbs they could find, hoping for a miracle from the lake. Tension spikes as a giant winged squirrel wolf emerges from the bushes like a high-level boss. This monster frightens to death, rows of sharp teeth and wings, not like an ordinary trash mob. The children sweat as the wolf lunges forward to crush them. Nagi does not hesitate and calls a huge swirling ring of water to protect the children. He watches from his own liquid perspective. His power easily cuts off the predator. Nagi is amazed. He can manipulate water without any delay just by thinking about it. He realizes he looks suspicious as a giant lump, so he begins to materialize a human silhouette. He takes the form of a brutal figure in a hood, and water that flows around his body. He even sews stylish clothes for himself from the lake, so as not to look like a complete weirdo. "Now everything is fine," he says, reaching out his hand to the trembling children. The children were almost choking with relief and just burst out. They fall on the neck of their savior, hugging tightly. When the boy looks at the mountain ridge, he asks, who are you?" Nad decides to keep the old name and introduces himself as the spirit of the lake. The children's eyes flash with real sparks. They have never seen magic of such power. Nagi remains calm, acknowledging that he only recently got the job. He takes a small ball of water and touches the girl's face where there was a nasty wound. The wound disappears instantly. This proves that he has healing abilities of level S. The girl beams at him with a smile, shouting, "Nad, you are incredible." But his face suddenly becomes serious as he prepares to make a desperate request. "Please help my mother," he begs, bowing his head and trembling with tears. Nagi gently strokes the child's head and soothes, "Everything will be fine." He makes the children promise that his existence will be a strict secret from the rest of the world. He fills their vial with his concentrated healing water, promising that it will cure their mother. Since the forest is teeming with dangerous monsters, he decides that they need a guardian. He creates a small jumper water spirit to watch over them and guide them home. A system window Nagipedia appears, explaining how it works. This is not just magic. Great spirits can create familiars of the same attribute to be their eyes and ears. The boy feels a mysterious presence in the little spiritite matches Naga's power. Nagi names the little one Lu and asks the children to befriend him. They wave goodbye as they return to their village with the new companion. Nagi decides that this time he has had enough of human form and dissolves again into the depths. He calmly hovers among the plants, enjoying the quiet life of a spirit. The night sky is reflected on the surface, and only then does he finally begin to feel at home. But his peace crumbles from yet another desperate cry for help. It rolls like an echo through the water. A family of dark elves appears on the shore as if they have passed through a real war. The father, wounded, shouts, "Please save this child, please, I beg you." Nagi immediately directs a stream of healing water into the mouth of the dying child. The boy's eyes suddenly open wide and life returns instantly. Their wounds disappear, and the family is overwhelmed with tears by the mercy of the spirit. Nad uses his Nagipedia to find information about these newcomers. The system explains that dark elves have a high affinity with spirits and can usually see them. However, humans in this world are experienced, foolish strongmen who consider dark elves enemies. Although they truly oppose the demonic race, humans still treat them like monsters. Nagi speaks to them from the water, telling them they don't need to be so formal. The elves are shocked to hear the voice of the Great Spirit directly. Nagi tells them that they can live near the lake only if they promise not to pollute the water. The family is full of gratitude and thanks him for his kindness. They introduce themselves, Etna he, Lena his wife, and their son Gilio. And just like that, Nagi gets his first permanent neighbors in the group. A month passes and Nagi keeps wondering how the human children are doing. He visits them through his acquaintance Loss of Sight. He sees the children and their mother happy and healthy in their own home and feels like a hero. He still does not know the exact reason why he was called into this world. But he understands, if he can use this S-rank power to save people, that is already a sufficient reason for him. He vows to save everyone he can reach. Nagi jumps out of the lake to Etna to talk, and Etna looks at his appearance in surprise. Etna tells him that since they arrived, no one has suffered any serious injuries. She constantly plants seeds on the fertile land around the lake. I am looking forward to this, says Nagi smiling. And then a distorted voice rings in his head, calling for help. Nagi asks Etna if she heard anything, but the elf does not respond. The voice becomes louder, a desperate plea to the Great Spirit to help someone's only family. Suddenly, a huge magical circle appears under Naga's feet. He is forcibly pulled away, and he is drawn into a whirlpool of water and light that spins. Where are they taking our boy, and who is pulling the strings here? Nagi wakes up in a strange place, not understanding where the hell he is, because he was grabbed and pulled through a mysterious magical circle. It turned out he was summoned for rescue. A weak voice begged for help. He suddenly finds himself locked in a cramped dark cage, around him a bunch of frightened children. It immediately hits him. This is not just an ordinary prison, this is a cage for live merchandise. One little half-elf girl desperately prays to the Great Spirit to save her brother Rudo. Nagi understands. Although she is half-elf and elves usually cannot call spirits, her pure heart still reached him. He appears before her and declares, I have come in response to your call. I am Nagi, the Great Spirit of the lake. Seeing the child unconscious on the floor, he understands. His new healing powers are the only thing that can save the boy. The girl, Yona, will beg him to save her only family and even promises to give everything she has just for that. Nagi can say, Rudo is on the brink of death and finally realizes that he was summoned precisely because of the connection to the healing power. Impressed by Yona's strength and kind heart, he decides without hesitation to fulfill her wish. A luminous spirit contract seal appears on her hand, engraving their new bond. The contract is made. He smiles and is ready to get to work. Nagi placed his hand on Rudo's head and transmitted a wave of restorative energy into his body. In a moment, the steel shackles that were squeezing the child crack like glass as the healing magic gains strength. Other children, from beast folk to elves, are completely stunned to see their chains disappear. Rudo finally opens his eyes and looks at his sister, trying to understand if he is dreaming. Naga's heart melts from the reunion, but he knows. He can't just take and leave the rest of these children in this mess. He tells them, we will escape from here, although his hands secretly tremble at how to handle a whole pack of orphans. One of the children with animal ears asks if escape is even possible, and Nagi reassures him. As long as he is here, everything will be fine. And suddenly the trash mob guards appear, shouting at the boys for causing a commotion. And as soon as they notice Nagi, they immediately freeze, overwhelmed by an oppressive feeling of disgust and powerless strength. These fat fools treat the children like trash, and Naga's aura already begins to make the whole room vibrate. One of them even pulls out a knife, asking if Nagi thinks he can really challenge them. Naga's eyes grow cold as he listens to their threats, and he quietly calls them pieces of trash. But before the guard can react, Nagi manipulates the moisture in the air and sends it back at him with a powerful high-pressure water jet. The guards are already panicking, shouting, don't come closer, while Megi's water magic starts to swirl around him. He mocks them and asks if they would believe him if he said he was a great spirit. Nagi is no longer joking. He summons giant liquid hands that cover the attackers. He clenches his fist and the water responds without any delay, crushing the opponents. He creates a bloody whirlwind that knocks the guards off their feet, and they completely collapse on the stone floor. Bandits still shudder in puddles, and Nagi stands over them like an absolute monster. When the immediate threats have passed, he takes the guards' keys and unlocks the rest of the cells for the other children. More reinforcements arrive. They call him a mage and claim they are involved in legal slave trade. Nagi quickly cuts them off and tells them he is not a mage, he is a spirit. He pointed a finger at the leader of the freaks and declared that he came to save the children from the disgusting scum just like them. He lets the water speak, washing away the guards with a giant tidal wave. Nagi gives them one last chilling warning. If you continue to enslave children, next time there will be no mercy. The remaining guards are so frightened that they almost stumble over their own feet to escape. Our guy leads the children out of the dungeon and finally emerges to the surface, where he sees sunlight again. They find themselves in a giant city, and Nagi suddenly realizes he has no idea where he is or how to return to his pond. To make matters worse, the boy's stomach rumbled and he suddenly understood. People actually have to eat. He checks his inventory and realizes he has no gold at all, so he cannot buy supplies. He rushed into the bakery, but the seller immediately became wary. The traveler was carrying a whole bunch of gacha pull from different races. Nagi panics and babbles a crazy story that all these children are his half-brothers, and that he is simply happy. Finally, everyone has reunited. He immediately regrets being so showy, and even the baker lady cries emotionally because of his fabricated story. She gives the children as much bread as they can eat for free, reminding Nagi, there are villains in the world, but there are also good people. After providing snacks, Nagi learns they ended up in the city of Ilmus, far to the south of the kingdom of Rugunas. He needs a quick way to make some currency, so the baker advises him to look into trading or becoming a craftsman. But Nagi notices the Travelers Guild and decides that completing a quest is the fastest way to get his bag. He enters the guild, looks at the bulletin board, and thinks, this is the perfect way to earn money quickly. He approaches the counter with the group and asks the registrar to register him as a traveler. On the form, he keeps everything simple. Name, Nagi, race, human, profession, mage, skills, water, magic. He receives his official ID card from the lower level starting from the 10th class. To keep everything quiet and without unnecessary noise, he takes a simple task to gather herbs, one that looks safe enough for the children to go with him. And just as he was about to leave, a group of elite adventurers bursts in carrying a wounded comrade in their arms. The guild raises a commotion because the party was attacked by a basilisk. Nagi knows wounds from a basilisk carry a nasty curse that prevents normal healing from working. Yona looks at the dying elf named Philly and begged Nagi to help her. Nagi sighs and tells her to leave it to him, although he really did not want to stand out today. He approaches the unconscious elf and discreetly pours some magically infused water into her mouth. The crowd is still panicking because of the basilisk, but the curse is already being washed away by divine magic of Naga's tier level. He tells the kids to relax and advises them, while everyone is distracted by the miracle, to go finish his herbal quest. Philly wakes up completely refreshed and tells her comrades that she felt a divine presence as soon as she opened her eyes. She realizes it was not just her imagination and looks around the room searching for her savior. She notices Nagi leaving the building and rushes after him, shouting for him to wait a moment. He stops in an alley, she catches up to him and bows deeply, sincerely thanking him for saving her life. Nagi tries to pretend that everything is fine, but she stares at him with all her unconditional intensity. Here she immediately drops a bomb. She asks him, are you the great water spirit? It seems the secret identity of our guy has leaked in record time. Philly is absolutely shocked. She looks into Naga's eyes and finally realizes the truth. She asked directly, is he really the great water spirit? Before he could answer, the rest of the squad gone and Shanice rushed forward to forcibly take her back to bed, because she is still recovering. They try to think logically, but Philly's elven senses are already tingling, and Nagi starts sweating from the pressure because he is about to be exposed. Finally, our guy simply accepts his fate and throws out confirmation, causing Philadelphia to have a complete fangirl meltdown. She is overwhelmed by the fact that a true deity saved her life, and she almost trembles from it. Nagi manages to catch her before she falls, but the moment is interrupted by a new opponent entering the game. It is an older man, Yushin, the guild leader, and he has been eavesdropping on the entire show all along. He understands you can't have such a grand lore drop in the middle of a corridor, so he calls the whole group back to the guild for a private conversation. When they are placed in the VIP lounge, the air becomes heavy. The reality of what happened hits them fully. Yushin bows deeply, demonstrating colossal respect to Nagi for protecting one of his top adventurers. Our guy begins to tell how all this traveling started when some child called him. He lays out the entire sequence of events from the rescue to the current state. Yushin only feels relief the children were pulled out of that nightmare and they are safe. But Philadelphia cannot get over one detail. The fact that a half-elf managed to summon a giant spirit, it's simply unreal. According to legends, such mana can only be possessed by high elves. This thought hits Yana hard and she froze, as if the weight of the whole world rests on her shoulders. To show his gratitude, Yushin hands over a huge bag of gold for travel expenses. Nagi is stunned. He only now realized how great the influence of the title Great Spirit is in this world. Yushin effectively gives him a blank check for everything he desires. When the city descends into night, The guild building towers under the stars. The streets are quiet. And Nagi takes care of the children while they finally get some kind of normal sleep. He is truly grateful that it never occurred to you to settle them in such elite housing. Suddenly, Yona approaches him completely exhausted. He asks if she is having trouble falling asleep, and she again bows her head thanking him. But in her eyes darkness as she searches for words. She genuinely apologizes for being the one who called him, feeling that someone like her should not have such a powerful connection. She clutches her chest. You can see how she is torn apart by the devastating blow to her self-esteem after years of being treated like trash. Nagi realizes the trauma from her past made her feel as if she is not worthy of his protection. Seeing her so anxious because of others' shock, it breaks his heart. She literally trembles with guilt, convinced that she has become a burden. But Nagi enters, gently pats her on the head, and says that she has zero reasons to apologize. He reminds her she is his contractor and she is the one who brought him here. He even chides her with a good truth, saying he is glad because she called it gave him a chance to see the outside world. That is exactly what she needed to hear, and she begins to cry tears of pure relief. Their moment is interrupted by a knock on the door. Philly approaches and knocks. She apologizes for the nighttime interruption, but she carries an urgent message directly from the guild. Nagi feels that he knows exactly what it is about. The travelers step forward, promising to guard the children with their own lives while Nagi settles matters. He turns back to Yona and explains that he needs to leave for a short time, and she looks completely broken by the fact that he is leaving. Her eyes fill with fear he might not return. To seal everything, Nagi makes a pinky promise, swears on his own honor that he will return. This promise finally brings a genuine smile to her face. Under the glow of the full moons, Nadi makes her way into the deep forest. The forest breathes eeriness, and he feels a huge presence lurking in the shadows. It doesn't take him long to track his target. A huge basilisk awaits him. Returning to the guild, Yushin explained that this monster is a complete nightmare with a body almost impossible to destroy. Nagi has already put everything together. He realized that this is the same beast that previously crushed Philly's team. The scouts reported even worse. They found a second one, a female who is about to give birth. These two basilisks are heading to the city in search of food, and the guild is offering 20 million gold for their heads. Yushin literally cried on his knees begging Nagi, Pelagro, and save the city. And Nagi does it not only for the money. He knows that innocent people will be slaughtered if he does not intervene. Yushin is so excited that he promises to tell Naga's legend to every future generation. Returning to the present, Nagi prepares for the hunt. Two huge, prehistoric-looking basilisks crawl out from behind the trees, and it seems they are already ready to clear the lobby. The basilisk sinks its gaze into its prey, its eyes emit deadly pressure. Our guy realizes that his petrifying evil eye in human form won't work, so he decides to switch to a build better suited for a boss fight on the edge. He begins to manifest an incredible amount of mana and transforms into a majestic water dragon, because he needs a form that will be even stronger. He bursts through the air without any delay, leaving behind a trail of shimmering water. He hovers over the forest and jokes that if he has to fight, then let it be in such a cool form. The two basilisks understand. They have drawn aggro from something beyond their strength. A giant dragon looms over them. They try to look threatening, but it is clear that their hands are trembling and they are sweating from this level of power. Nadi does not let them recover, unleashes a devastating breath attack that completely clears the lobby. An energy beam hits one of the snakes right in the mouth, instantly breaking its defense. The sheer volume of mana discharge is terrifying. The flash blinds and illuminates the entire forest. As a result, the explosion creates craters, and the surrounding ground is destroyed and crushed. Even Nagi is a bit stunned by the destruction. He admits that the power is greater than he expected. One of the basilisks even tries to apologize while his partner is covered by the meat grinder, but Nagi won't let them off that easily. Only one snake remains. It screams, and I can't let you escape, until it delivers its final blow. She spins a giant water vortex, trying to trap our guy in a liquid cage. The water foams and rages wildly as the basilisk pours everything it has into the spell. When the fog clears, Nagi is human again, completely calm, and approaches the fallen beast. The massive basilisk is officially out of the game. It lies motionless on the forest floor. He reaches out to touch the scale and confirms the kill. He notices that another woman with a swollen belly was nearby and quietly says, "Sorry." Meanwhile, the guild leader watches this with an expression of utter shock. Nagi calmly states that the request has been fulfilled, unaware that a guild member is lurking in the shadow of the trees. Our guy's awareness is at the level of gods. Calmly, as if in passing, he orders the hidden scout to take the body. The guild member freezes in amazement. Nagi reveals his silent speed while preparing to return to the city. Returning to the guild office, the boss loses composure. He had no idea the quest could be closed so quickly. He falls to his knees in a deep bow, thanks Nagi for saving the city, and presents a huge pile of gold. Nagi looks at the loot and thinks that this is an incredible mountain of money. And the real trick with the prize is the next gift, an item box bag, which allows the user to carry an infinite amount of baggage. Nagi is genuinely impressed. He realizes that now he can grab and store as many items as he wants. The old man is not finished yet and takes out another reward. It is an official plaque confirming Nagi is now a fourth-class adventurer. Nagi is surprised by such a rank, but the boss explains. Nagi truly deserves first class, but fourth is the highest he is currently authorized to grant. Outside, the guild poles are already loading a huge serpent onto a cart for full appraisal. Neji says a polite thank you for everything, preparing to set off. He grabs his new magic bag and wonders whether to go straight back to the lake. When the sun sets over the town, Neji begins to piece together troubling hints from an ancient story. He knows that basilisks usually live far from people, so he wonders, why are they coming so close to the city? He freezes in place and asks himself if someone deliberately moved them to spark a crisis. He stands alone on the street for a moment, feeling that a bigger conspiracy is brewing somewhere. His dark thoughts are interrupted as soon as he sees Philly and the children waiting for him in front of the inn. They couldn't wait for him to return and insisted on meeting him personally. The children look at him with pure admiration, shouting, "Lord Neji, welcome home." Our guy finally barely smiles in response, "I'm home." He is literally swarmed by the kids, a friendly bunch in a tight, warm, embracing group. He tells them to get ready because tomorrow they start their journey to his lake. He describes the lake as a quiet paradise where dark elves live happily. He is confident that the children will easily blend into the group because they have all undergone similar trials. Philly and her company watch from the side, and it is clear that something is troubling their minds. Philly approaches him, and her voice sounds soft as she says she is simply glad that he returned alive and safe. She says that they owe him a debt of gratitude that they will never truly be able to repay. Taking a deep breath, she says to him, "Lord Nagi, I have a request." She asks if her entire company can accompany him on the road. She explains that she wants to repay his kindness by serving him. Other guys followed along, promising to help and protect the city and the children. The children are excited and shout with joy their older sister is about to join them. Nagi noted that the children have fully warmed up to the company. Philly and the guys bow low, humbly asking his permission to join. Nagi extends his hand and accepts the thanks, thanking them for the offer. "From now on, I will count on you," he says with a gentle smile. Philadelphia looks as if it just won the lottery, faces glowing with joy. The group spends the rest of the day preparing, stopped by the local tailor for new gear. The children are simply incredibly cute in their new travel clothes. The townspeople gather together to say goodbye, and one woman even hugs Nagi with tears in her eyes for saving their lives. Philly and the team stand by the wagon, gathered and ready, a true traveling adventure crew. Nagi receives the last big payment for the basilisk materials. Yaoshin, the guild master, comes out personally to see them off. He tells Nagi to visit anytime and promises an even louder celebration for his next visit. Nagi jumps onto the wagon and asks if everyone is ready to depart. With the final shout, "All right, let's go," the whole group sets off for the lake to start a new life. The squad officially sets off from Ilmus to the lake. They make their way through the dense forest, and a mysterious bird watches from the shadows. Honestly, it's sweet to see how the kids are so charged with the atmosphere as they head to the next point, the city of Ronin. While they are on the road, Gandon and Shaunas take on the role of tanks in the party and teach the little ones a few vital self-defense techniques. Meanwhile, Nagi checks if anyone has magical talent and sees Yona and Rut are actually top units who just need to reveal themselves. He begins to show them how to manipulate the elements, helping to unlock the potential of that spirit magic. Philly and our guy behave like proud parents, teaching the kids the basics while they settle under the stars. Now he just hopes to find a normal, comfortable bed in the city, but the godstraps are definitely not on his side today. As soon as they roll up to the local inn, the manager immediately shuts them down and shouts, "Sorry, everything is full today, look somewhere else." It turns out Ronin is packed to the brim, and they have officially checked every place in the city. Even Gandon and Shanna's looks are as if they barely dragged their feet after an exhausting dungeon crawl, but all in vain, as they didn't find a single manor to rent. This is a dead end, and the team is already beginning to realize the city's hospitality is just a fiction. Yona tries to stay brave and tells Lord Nagi that they will absolutely sleep normally in the dirt, like a bunch of ordinary soldiers. When they are almost about to give up, A local boy starts circling around as if trying to provoke them. The team instantly switches to combat mode, looking as if they are ready to break anyone who dares to approach. But it turns out that he is just a scared little child who swears he is not suspicious at all. Nagi realizes that the team has overreacted, so he diffuses the tension and explains. They are just travelers who do not know the local area. The boy's face lights up and he offers to lead them to a secret place. He shouted, "Follow me." Philadelphia is quite understandably trembling with fear, because she just followed some random NPC into a dark alley. But Nagi gives her the same smile as a main heroine and makes a promise. "I will protect you if things go wrong." The others from the party are so moved that they practically swear loyalty to him for life, and that is already too much even for our guy. The boy leads them to the outskirts and, finally stopping, brings them to a building that looks almost completely secluded. They are greeted by a kind-hearted woman named Marina. She welcomes them despite the incredible size of this group. She tells them not to worry, they have plenty of bedding. It turns out this place is an orphanage run by the religion Sarah, which focuses on saving the weak and helping those in need. Nagi feels a little guilty for destroying the charity house, but understands. It is necessary to be so confident that the children living there do not feel threatened by the whole pack of adventurers armored to the teeth. He tries to remain calm, introduces himself, and presents his team as harmless travelers. Nagi explains that the children with them are refugees seeking a safe place to live. Yona rushes forward and delivers the most heartfelt speech, telling the other orphans that Lord Nagi and the others are good people who truly care about them. She promises that they will be obedient children if only they can stay for one night. When Yona behaves so desperately for the sake of the whole group, Nagi simply breaks inside. The local children immediately bite on the idea. They smile radiantly and joyfully welcome their new friends. Nagi gives Yona a light pat on the head for a job well done. Philadelphia shines with pride and thanks Yona for daring to say what she thinks. The whole team bows to Marina, officially asking for shelter for the night. Nagi did not intend to be a freeloader, so he extends a heavy bag of gold. Any gacha shark would envy it. Marina is impressed by the amount, but Nagi insists. This is an honest exchange for her kindness. When the money for funding was secured, Marina went all out and prepared a real banquet luxury that looked as if it had been gathered straight from an elite tavern. Philly bursts in to help with the preparations, making sure everyone is full. During dinner, Marina reveals that most of the orphanage workers ran off to better-paying jobs, so she has to carry the whole burden alone. Nagi asks Sarah about religion and Marina explains. They focus on helping those in need. She says that their faith is based on the goddess of water, and the water spirits the kings who will come. This is a huge lore excursion about Nagi, the very lord of the water spear, whom these people are worshipping right now. He sits there trembling with sweat, unable to find a place for himself, while everyone is praising their own divine aura. When Marina notices that he has stopped eating, she asks if he is already full. She says she left leftovers so the children would have proper food when everyone returns tomorrow. The orphans are so inspired by her dedication that they vow to work twice as hard to help. Marina almost cries from the support, suddenly realizing that she is not fighting this alone. Nagi looks at this sweet moment and understands. He has to do something because he is their true deity. Late that night, while Marina prays to the King of Spirits for protection, Megi decides that it's time to intervene. He begins to manifest his power. Drops of water start swirling in the air. Marina is completely stunned. She can barely comprehend that a great spirit is appearing in her room. Nagi, acting through the water spirit, tells her that he is deeply impressed by her selfless deeds. He presents her with a spirit stone, a high-level artifact worth a fortune. He tells her that his wish is for the children to be happy and urges her to sell the stone. Marina could not believe her luck. She bowed low and asked how she could ever repay such divine mercy. Nagi's message is simple. Protect the children and love them, that will be your reward. The next morning, Nagi and his team prepare to depart. For the first time, he gives Marina a final word of support, telling her to continue doing her best. As they leave, Marina looks as if she has undergone a full stat reset, brighter and more determined than ever. Nagi contacts the team and asks what the next move will be. Gon and Shawnees snoop for information in the guild. They check the weather and watch to ensure no fierce monsters lurk on the roads. They even manage to get a mansion for as long as 3 days, so the team can finally relax in luxury. But just as things begin to improve, that creepy raven from the past starts watching Nagi from the trees again. The bird actually spoke and said they will meet very soon. Nagi is completely exhausted suddenly and cannot comprehend what kind of strange entity this is at all. The raven flies off somewhere unknown, to a mysterious room, and there a hidden figure watches everything that happens. This mysterious boss watches Nagi through a crystal ball, revealing that he knows his greatest secret. He is a reincarnator from Japan. Nagi and Gand investigate the route to the lake, when suddenly everything goes sharply awry. The guild buzzes with rumors. Along the highway, monsters are becoming too aggressive. The mood grows even heavier when they recall that a black dragon was spotted over the neighboring city. This is not just some trash crowd. Dragons are noble creatures that people almost never see. Gon understands, leaving now is a huge risk for the children under his care. Suddenly, a guild clerk calls everyone to pay attention to the bulletin board. The reception manager looks as if sweat is pouring from her body as she announces a surge in monster activity. After a full investigation, it turned out the situation is much worse than they thought. To prevent the city from falling, the guild calls for help from every adventurer of rank 5. To prevent the city from falling, the guild calls for help from every adventurer of rank 5. They offer a fat sum of 100,000 for the loss of anyone who joins the subjugation squad. Nagi doesn't even hesitate. He asks Gon if he is ready to join the front line. He advises others to stay behind and protect the children while they take on the hard work. Yend naturally worries because Nagi was about to rush into the fire. And Nagi simply gives him a calm smile like an MC and says that this is the only way to clear the path for their journey. Essentially, he is speedrunning the task so that everyone else can feel safe. They are heading to the registration zone. A huge crowd of players has already gathered there. Nagi notices Frio, an elf, who is incredibly sensitive to the crazy spirit aura that Nagi emits. A rank 4 pilot named Fail approaches them. He looks as if he is already ready to attack and start a fight. Nagi introduces himself as a rank 4 water mage, although everyone already knows. His stats are off the charts. Guildmaster Jild steps onto the stage and demands complete silence. He warns if anyone cannot keep their mouth shut, they should immediately leave the lobby. An icy silence suddenly falls in the room. Everyone is waiting for the announcement. He drops a bombshell and then the agitator rushes straight to the city. One name is enough to send a wave of panic through seasoned adventurers. This monster is a subspecies of subdragon, 10 meters of pure aggression, known as the gluttonous demon crawling on the ground. This is a high-level threat that causes all other monsters to flee the territory. The plan is to deploy a defensive line to stop this tank before it reaches the residential quarters. Jill admits, no matter how slowly, if it crosses the line, the damage will be irreversible. The introduction of heavy players begins. Narj is also introduced, a rank 2 spearman who looks like a complete armorer titan. Then there are the twins Luo and Neo. They cover the roles of healer and magic swordsman. Frio tries to introduce himself, but the guy literally trembles in his boots. He is a mage of spirit magic, and now he is openly afraid just standing near Naga's presence. The squad leader distributes summaries from reports so the squad can start theoretical analyses. Character first. Iron Gate Reform School. Everyone takes a sheet to study the boss's attack patterns. Nagi and his new company review the data and realize it will not be so simple and without a clear answer. Narj stands up and suggests choosing a leader for the raid right now. The group agrees. They need someone with high status and charisma to prevent them from being wiped out. Most veteran adventurers are too nervous to take the lead. Failer immediately nominates Narj, noting how well he has managed the group so far. The other part of the squad supports the attack. Narj looks closely to see if anyone objects, especially since there is a player with rank 1 in the room. Narj was officially appointed raid leader with applause. Nagi is actually waiting impatiently for these elite travelers to coordinate among themselves. He decides to keep his true strength hidden until the situation turns into a full emergency. When the meeting breaks up, Narge reminds everyone, the real slaughter begins tomorrow. Cold, and he is still a fan of Nagi and offers to host the whole group at his home. Nagi tries to politely refuse because his friends are already waiting. But Frio insists that he bring the whole team to his huge estate. When they return, Philae completely loses it because Nagi signed up for a suicide mission. Genj just waved it off and knew he wouldn't be able to stop Naga's sincere eyes, even if he wanted to. At that moment, Frio and Fail appear at the door escorting our guy to the mansion. Nagi explains the situation to Philae, introducing his new comrades. Fail is simply happy to travel together. Frio is truly touched and frankly glad to host a person of Naga's caliber under his own roof. Late that night, the girls wonder why Frio treats Nagi like a true god. Nagi stops hiding and reveals the truth. He is a great water spirit. He tells about his mission to reach the lake and why he protects the children. Frio bursts into tears from Naga's kindness. Fail understands that Naga's mysterious presence finally has an explanation. She admits that she followed him because she knew he was not just some random traveler. They shake hands and promise to make the conquest successful so that Nagi can reach his goal. The next morning, the children and Philly wave them off and watch them go, praying for their safety. With his trusted comrades nearby, Nagi sets off to meet the dragon. Everyone was sweating with fear because the extermination of the Adantators is finally starting. The magical unit takes position to draw attention to themselves and support the front line, while the rest of the crew deploys the defensive perimeter. Our guy Nagi is not idle. He enters the battle and prepares the field by arranging high-level terraforming. He has zero delay. He manipulates water and earth to deploy a huge zone of destruction. He drops a massive trap in the swampy area, a complete ecological disaster for any boss. The terrain here is clay itself, so these are ideal conditions to break anyone who steps here as soon as the ground hardens. When the magic circles are already charged and the defensive line is set, the atmosphere presses with a heavy premonition. The squad is ordered to rest. The scout reported that the real raid will begin at dawn. While Nagi relaxes, the twins Neo and Luo approach him, completely stunned by his magic. They have a serious request, and they want to borrow some of his time as soon as this mission is completed. They throw a mysterious phrase, "There is one person we want you to meet." Nagi is definitely interested, and has no idea who might be behind this mysterious invitation. These two are so desperate that they literally fall to their knees and beg him to agree to the meeting. Nagi scans the room for any red flags but realizes everything here is 100% genuine. He agrees to meet their contact, but now has to check in at the main event tomorrow. Good morning, and the ground begins to tremble so strongly that the entire map tilts to the side. A giant foot the size of a mountain strikes the ground sharply. This is a sign that the Adantator has already arrived. This huge fool rushes straight towards the city like a real battering ram destroyer. It crashes through stone walls as if they were wet paper, demonstrating a terrible level of pure primal force. The boss heads straight into Naga's trap in the swampy area. As soon as it enters, the team immediately activates the trap. The giant turtle is stuck in the mud and looks as if it has finally been caught in the CC chain. Some of the cursing mobs in the party already think victory is in their pocket, but experienced hunters know the fight has only just begun. The beast tears through the mud, forcing the mages to activate explosive mines. A powerful explosion shakes the entire territory. Debris scatters in all directions. Even Nagi is forced to shield himself from shockwaves as the battlefield turns into a total war zone. When the smoke clears, the monster still stands in place, as if the explosive blast of damage didn't touch it. The squad begins to panic, shouting, "What? Even that doesn't help." A Adantator roars so fiercely that it physically hits, and the defensive barriers shatter into pieces. Nagi realizes the front line is about to be wiped out, so he instantly summons a huge water vortex. "I set a barrier instead of a wall," he shouts, stepping onto the front line himself and taking on the defensive phase. Inspired by the complete calm of the main hero, the physical attackers rush forward to land several precise strikes. They swing heavy blades and axes, searching for a vulnerable spot in this thick armor. They hit with all their might with heavy blows, but the boss's health bar barely moves. Nagi watches as the situation rapidly spirals into an abyss. The monster's fierce roar is so crackling that it actually disables the lower floor of the adventurers. Frio, the elf mage, understands that he is losing the trade and tries to buy time by summoning a giant golem. At that moment, this stone tank flies into the boss and pounds with full force, trying to hold the line. He lands a heavy blow, but the Adantator holds on too tightly. The golem suffers a complete break in one counterattack, leaving Frio and the rest completely exposed. The machine charges up for the finishing blow, a strike that would clear the entire lobby. But Nagi calmly steps forward, throws Frio, "I'll take the rest on myself." He begins to channel a huge flow of mana, and a giant water dragon starts to grow, forming right before their eyes. The water spirit looms over the battlefield, radiating an aura of god-level power. Nagi releases the spell. The dragon tears forward with zero delay. It's a direct hit. A massive surge of water completely crushes the Adantator's defense. The beast is engulfed by a swirling vortex of pure elemental power. As the rain begins to drizzle, the dust settles, revealing that the beast has been completely neutralized. The wounded hunters begin to regain consciousness and shockingly notice their wounds are actually healing thanks to a mystical rain. No one can understand how the top boss just simply disappeared. Everyone is frantically exchanging glances in search of an answer, completely shocked and utterly clueless about what power just appeared when you revealed it. Our guy decides to hide his true identity, raises the spirit stone, and claims that he was just lucky. He tells them, "It seems the great water spirit took pity on me and helped," and the whole group unconditionally believes it. They return to the guild to celebrate the victory with a grand banquet. Gent is the only one still missing, because right now he is at Frio's apartment dying from a terrible hangover. When the quest is completed, Nagi remembers his promise to the twins. He is led to the outskirts of the city and told how their master was watching his every move. They reach a solitary cabin deep in the forest, surprisingly modest for someone so important. But as soon as they approach the door, Neo and Lua reveal that it is actually a magical gate. They activate a high-level teleportation circle, and the entire room bursts into light. Nagi walks through the steps and finds himself in a luxurious hall, where a mysterious figure awaits him. A gray-haired man with a legendary beard meets him and calls him the Great Spirit of Water. Then he throws in the main lore bomber he calls Naga's real name from his past life. Saejima Nagi, isn't it? The tension in the room breaks at the edge as the old man hurls a giant lore bomber into the space and reveals. He knows that our boy's real name is Saejima Nagi. Before Nagi can grasp how the sorcerer knows his secret, the old man begins weaving shining kangu in the air to reveal his own identity. It turns out he is not just some random NPC, he is a compatriot from Japan, named Agatsuma Yuuki. The revelation is so swift and brilliant, as if he is boasting about his premium gacha effects just to make an entrance. He stands in place, looking like a legendary unit level, and finally names the face. Fail completely loses it, shouting in Japanese as if she just saw a glitch in the Matrix. The twins Luo and Neo simply get the instruction, go play while the adults talk about their business. But the sage does not try to dampen the mood. A snap of the fingers and he pulls a whole tall tea out of nowhere, confusing Nagi because the physical engine actually seems to give up. It turns out this legendary sage is actually quite playful, you just have to step beyond that frightening aura. While they drink tea, the sage throws out a heavy tale about the timeline, and says he has been in this world for about 300 years as the Sage of Providence. Returning to Japan, he was an ordinary businessman who was suddenly thrown into another world without warning. Here my head starts to hurt from the math. Nagi left Earth in 2033 and Sage in 2024. Despite only a 9-year difference between them on Earth, the Sage has been honing his path here for centuries. This is a huge time distortion. 9 years in our world turn into 300 years in this one. This is a complete lag failure in the space-time continuum. The sage says that Nagi is actually the 4th reincarnator who has hit this server, and apparently he is the most broken of them all. But he explains that people from Japan appear every few decades to act as agents of change. Essentially, this is the world's way of forcibly pushing a new update to keep everything moving and prevent boredom. He has used his providence for years to track Naga's arrival. Remember that creepy crow that was watching our guy? It was actually Sage trying to make contact. He apologizes because the spiritual connection was almost like trying to hold something back on a single Wi-Fi bar. Nagi understood the bird was not a threat, just a very slow messenger. After all this, hearing the word smartphone again really moves Nagi to tears. We quickly analyze the other players. The first is a legendary hero named Takashi Matoba, who founded an entire kingdom before he died. He was almost the MVP of his time, the founder of Takasol Kingdom. And there is also some guy, now just enjoying himself on a tropical island, living fully while everyone else drags heavy work. A strange contrast. One is a nation builder and the other is a man who just wants eternal rest. But when the sage asks Nagi for a colossal favor related to the twins, everything becomes truly serious. It turns out Neo and Lua are not just random mages. They are survivors, princes from the fallen magical kingdom of Lunatia. Everything was boiling here until 18 years ago when it was wiped off the face of the earth. The sage has been raising them in secret since an old friend brought them to him as infants. These children are almost like a highly professional team with extreme potential. They themselves cannot control magic alone, but when they combine their powers, they are able to cast spells on a scale usually only possible for an entire raid-level team. The sage wants Nagi to take them with him on a journey because their social skills are completely ruined after all. They have lived in isolation all the time. He has seen the future and knows Nagi is the key for them to form connections with other people. He even bows to our guy, showing how genuinely he cares about the growth of his student. Seeing this legendary sage get emotional means he is not just a cold-blooded genius manipulator. And now Nagi sees how much warmth and love the old man has for these two and cannot refuse. Here and now he makes a vow. Since he has such crazy power, he will use it to save everyone who falls within his reach. This is a true main character moment, the kind that makes the sage look sincerely grateful. Before leaving, the sage throws a few pieces of advice for the road, and advises Nagi to teach other children magic as well. And then the hardest part begins, saying goodbye. The twins officially joined the party and accepted Nagi as their new master. The sage reminds them that they can always teleport back to visit, so this is not a farewell forever. The children finally barely smile, and only then do they realize that their new adventure has truly begun. Then the sage shifts his gaze to Fail, gripping her with a question. Will she really follow Nagi? He sees that she has her own hidden reasons to stay. Nagi senses no deceit in her, so he calmly allows her to be near. Fail is insanely nervous, declaring that she came only to watch. Nagi will no longer regain his freedom. This is classic Sunder behavior, but the whole group just laughs it off. The sage watches them leave and prays that happiness will follow our boy on his journey. The new party is officially formed. Luo, Neo, and Fail have joined the squad. Fail is already establishing contact with the younger children, behaving as if she is their older sister. Even the twins begin to slowly open up, but they still find it hard to get used to people pointing out. They have exactly the same faces and hair. Nagi makes sure to thank Frio for all the help, and in return gives her a water spirit as a familiar. When everything is settled, they gather, pack the cart, and set off for the next town. And just then the scene cuts into the dark landscape, and the vibe instantly changes. The people have actually managed to catch the black dragon, and on it glowing shackles. It's a complete nightmare, and it is not at all happy about the cage. It lets out a horse curse, promising to destroy every person who comes near. If in the next zone Nagi faces exactly this, our guy better be ready for a real boss fight. The party finally arrives at Mariel, a noisy city right on the border. It was a long month of travels, so our guy Nagi decides they should set up camp here for 10 days so everyone's endurance bars can recover. But while the rest of the squad catches some minutes of sleep, Naga's internal radar suddenly starts sending frequent signals, a heavy premonition of trouble. He looks out the window and notices a huge vortex of dark energy wildly spinning in the night sky. The videos have already completely burned out, and Nagi feels a soul-killing wave of pain and hatred erupting from the source. He is curious, but he's not going to leave his comrades unprotected while he goes on a solo mission. He makes a total pro-gamer move and summons a high-level water spirit to hold the defense. This cute little force is Suiko, and she immediately greets Nagi as her father before taking her post. Once the base is securely established, Nagi slips into the night, tracking that dark presence to a basement near the mansion. He understands. The target is hidden deep underground behind several layers of magical protection. Nagi has no time for a stealth approach, so he simply smashes the barrier as if it were glass. He falls into the deepest part of the pit and comes face to face with a nightmare that exists in reality. A giant terrifying creature is chained to the spot in radiant shackles, radiating an aura of pure power. This is a dark dragon, and even in a weakened state, the pressure it exerts is simply incredible. The beast introduces itself as Diazotis, and Nagi calmly reveals his essence as a mighty water spirit. This hulking beast is already on the edge, admitting that he no longer has the strength to even flap his wings. He explains that he once lived in the demon abyss until humans pulled a dirty trick. While he was hunting, they stole his egg and used it as bait to lure him into a trap. Now he is bound by dragon shackles, and curses and spells are literally rotting his soul. The dragon has completely broken near death. He begged Nagi to save my child from the hands of these arrogant humans. Nagi is not going to release a legendary creature like some trash mob, so he offers to heal wounds that are beyond healing. Diazot thinks that it is impossible, but Nagi's magic is of a completely different kind, and he instantly fully restores the dragon's health. The dragon looks at him intently as if it has just seen the gacha god descend. Nagi does not stop, grabs the legendary shackles, and tears them from the ground without any legs. Diaz Otis literally sweats with fear, looking at the pure power of this spirit who has just devalued the cursed seal. To escape, Nagi does not even look for stairs, he simply breaks a huge hole straight through the mansion's roof. When they take off into the sky, Nagi has to remind the feverish dragon not to level the city to the ground, because his friends are still sleeping there. They fly to the palace in the next city, where the egg is held captive. Nagi knows, if the dragon rushes forward, it will just draw attention to itself and be captured again, so he decides to go in alone in his spirit form. He transforms into a tiny drop of water to slip unnoticed past the high-level guards patrolling the corridors. He manages to slip into the treasury, but he encounters the main plot twist. There is not one egg, but two hidden inside. Nagi realizes that he cannot pass the eggs through walls as he does with his body, so he decides to protect them both. He stages a grand distraction, floods the entire treasury, then swims out of the building on a literal tidal wave. He arranges a meeting with the dragon and hands over the loot, but Diaz Oda notices something strange. One of the eggs belongs to a black sacred creature, named Narsh, a being said to bring insane fortunes and fame. Suddenly the egg bursts into light and begins to absorb Naga's mana. As they head back to the city, the dragon asks how he could possibly repay such a huge debt. Nagi only smirks maliciously, already spinning a plan for his new dragon ally. Nagi and the cat girl notice. The city is too noisy, almost unsettling. The boy realizes the mood is off and decides to head to the lake much earlier than planned. Philadelphia is sweating with fear over logistics, reminding him that crossing the border without permission is practically a death sentence for their plans. Nagi is unconcerned and starts assigning tasks. He tells the squad to disperse and secure at least a month's supply of food. He puts Luo and Neo to the grind to find enough high-quality materials to build 3 huge houses for the entire team. While Philadelphia leads the others to gear up in new clothes, Nagi decides to involve Agro in the hardest task, finding professional builders. He heads straight to the guild hoping to find a master carpenter who isn't afraid to relocate a bit. While he walks the streets, his high-level perception begins to prick with anxiety. He feels a giant wave of poisoned energy and anger seeping from the surrounding buildings. The dark aura is so dense that it almost materializes before his eyes, and the smell is like pure corruption. He begins to catch psychic echoes of half-people who were illegally turned into slaves. The word servants hits him like a debuff, and his face immediately grows cold. He understands, beneath his feet are people trapped in a snare, suffering in some secret prison dungeon. A mental flash strikes his mind. Frightened children sobbing and calling for help for our guy, this is the last line that must not be crossed. Without any hesitation, Nagi uses spiritual powers and seeps through the cobblestones as if through air. He is pulled into a dark, stinking sewer. It looks as if someone drew a map of a high-level prison. The stagnant air confirms, for anyone locked here, this is a complete nightmare. Most people in cages look like real trash mobs, exactly where they belong. But then he notices an elf and a gnome. Their energy is absolutely pure, proving they were framed. Elf prisoner notices Nagi's spirit, which appears and weaves into Gasp's great spirit. He begs for salvation and his voice breaks from pure despair. The entire other corridor of the dungeon explodes with chaos as soon as the rumor spreads. The great spirit has appeared. In the neighboring cell, some big fool tells him to shut up, treating the innocent prisoners like dirt. Nagi does not hold back, immediately sprays him. A concentrated jet of water hits so that he shuts up. He reveals his physical form and begins breaking locks, ordering everyone to be silent. Someone is coming. The gnome is stunned but admits, even if he is freed, there is nowhere to go. Nagi twists a smile and asks the most important question directly. If you had somewhere to go, would you want to leave here? The gnome understands that Nagi is serious and admits he will do everything to break out of this pit. He says they have lost everything and have no hope of surviving outside. Our homeland was taken from us, he sobs, showing hands clearly made for the forge. Natty tells them his plan for the lake and offers a place in the new settlement he is building. He throws out a phrase that any protagonist would straighten their shoulders for. If you don't have a homeland, we can create one for you. Of course, he throws in a little hiccup, for gamers admitting that he actually just wants them to build him big houses. The prisoners choke with gratitude, and even the fluffiest half-humans ask to join the party. Suddenly, the real criminal bursts out screaming, asking to be moved, promising that they also know how to build. They look simply pathetic, begging Nagi to take them away from their deserved punishment. The dwarf warns Nagi, these guys are heavy criminal slaves, they must be avoided at all costs. Nagi scanned the room and noticed a guy in the back of the hall. He truly has a pure heart. He walks through the bars and asks that man why someone like him is stuck in this place. The poor guy admits he was framed for a crime by people his best friend who took both his money and his girlfriend. Meggy decides that enough is enough and says, "You don't belong here." He grabs the innocent guy and prepares to make a move while the other criminals continue howling. Nagi unleashes a giant tidal wave, with one clean move sweeping the new team out of the dungeon. Trash mobs bash against the bars and do not understand why they are not given any chance again. Nagi looks back without any pity and says, "You brought this upon yourselves." He leaves him behind as a cold reminder. They need to properly determine the punishment for their real crimes. The group finally gets outside and breathes the fresh city air again. The gnome is already speeding up and promises to build Nagi as many houses as he wants in their new homeland. The demi-humans rabbits and demi-humans cats are also ready to jump into work, promising to do their best to repay him for his kindness. Nagi realizes, essentially, he has just adopted an entire village of people who have nowhere else to go. He assures them that everything is fine and promises to introduce them to his other companions. When the main group sees the refugees, Philly and the girls are moved to tears by their tragic stories. Nagi shifts his gaze to the poisonous miasma spreading through the city and understands. Time is running out. Philadelphia notes, Local merchants are already taking goods off the shelves before logistics completely breaks down. Nagi decides they will spend one last day in the town to stock up on all daily necessities. The sun rises over their last morning, and the city seems like an empty ghost vestibule. The flow of people broke downwards, and Nagi notices that even his gold no longer pulls like it used to. Suddenly, a loud voice cuts through the silence of the street and announces that the shop is almost closing. Nagi examines the local store when the saleswoman Almina greets him with open arms. The place is packed with everything from ordinary loot to high-level magical artifacts. Suddenly, the crystal sphere on the shelf begins to glow, as if trying to reach its maximum. Almina explains that this rare artifact is created to respond to the presence of spirits. It seems that the brighter the light, the closer and more powerful the spirit really is. The sphere fires into full nitro fire, releasing a dazzling flash that almost bleaches the entire shop to white. Almina cannot believe her eyes because this thing actually turns into a mini-sun. Realizing that hiding no longer works, our guy drops a bomb. Actually, I am a great spirit, you know, very powerful. The revelation proves too heavy for Almina's brain. She falls face first onto the floor. In a moment, she finally opens her eyes, completely stunned by the truth. As soon as she gathers her thoughts, she unbearably needs to know why the huge spirit was locked in a human shop. Nagi explains the plan to move to the lake, and Almina understands. They will need a serious supply line for daily necessities. She doesn't miss a beat and asks, then why not leave the logistics to me? Finally, she admits, today she decided to close the shop to move anyway. She almost begs to join him, so please allow me to join you, Lord Nagi. Almina. To sweeten the deal, she offers to take absolutely every item from her inventory as a bonus. As soon as the merchant class was unlocked, the very next day Almina officially joins the team. The team finally leaves Mariel behind and heads deep into the forest to reach their new base. While others worry about going too far beyond the limits, Nagi says he is actually meeting with one special person. Suddenly, a giant shadow covers the sky, and a chill runs down everyone's spine. A huge black dragon falls from above, and the aura of pure power emanating from this monster knocks all indifference out of the entire company. The impressive scale of this creature is terrifying, and everyone else, upon seeing the legendary black dragon, breaks into cries of pure panic. Everyone recognizes in it the very same monster that has been spotted recently and is terrorizing the region. But Nagi calmly steps forward and explains that Diathotis is a victim. He was trying to return the child taken by people. The dragon bows its head and speaks directly to them. I have come today to repay Nagi for saving my life and my child. Nagi looks into the giant eye of the dragon and realizes they have the best means of fast travel on horseback. Since the rest of the group fainted from pure shock, the dragon creates a water bubble to safely transport everyone. They rise into the sky, flying through the clouds as if there are no delays at all. Diathotis visits Nagi to check if the flight is not too bumpy. Little Yona is the only one who did not faint and immediately noticed. The dragon really has very gentle eyes. Nagi tells her about the family of dark elves waiting for them by the lake, hoping she will befriend a boy named Helio. Yona blushes. It is clear that she is wildly excited. Finally, she has a place she can call home. As they clear the path, the dragon notices their target. Yona's eyes flash when she sees water and she shouts, "Amazing, it's beautiful." The dragon quietly descends and lands right on the shore of Lord Naga's lake. Diathotis officially repays his debt and says to Naga, I kept my promise. Nad thanks her for the help and she flies off into the sunset. After they revive the unconscious trash mobs, the whole group gathers near the wagons. Suddenly dark elves jump out of the bushes. Etna and Helio, shocked. Their lord has returned. They patiently waited for his return, but are a bit confused by the crowd he brought with him. Seeing the people, the elves immediately become alert and tense. Naga steps forward to vouch for them, says they are all decent and will not let anyone harm you. The party members start introducing themselves. Gand and Shauna speak first. Almina and Felix also step forward, explaining how Naga saved them from a dark fate. Naga asked the elves if everyone could live together by the lake. Etna smiles and agrees, working together is the best way forward. He invites everyone to return to himself for tea and a proper, as it should be, meeting. Nagi thanks Etna for the warm welcome, feeling as if the gacha gods have finally favored him and given him a good team. Yona immediately runs out to Helio to introduce herself. She also pulls along her younger brother Rudo, so that he can join the fun too. The children already find a common language, and the vibe here is very sincere. Even the roughest-looking members of this group find common ground with the locals. But Nagi notices monsters circling overhead and realizes such a large pack can draw attention aggro from the nearest threats. He places his hand on the water, directing his power. He sets up a giant protective barrier that will carry away any threats trying to cause harm. When the defense system is activated, the elves announce a grand banquet in honor of the master's return. When the moon rises, the celebration kicks into full gear. Altogether they drink and laugh, dwarves, elves, and humans. Our guy looks ahead and contentedly notes the community he himself gathered. Yona approaches to check on him and asks if he has already eaten. He tells her how happy he is that everyone has become such good friends. The children are already planning to go fishing tomorrow, but Nagi warns them, do not go beyond the barrier. Yona looks at him with pure admiration and thanks him for working so hard for everyone. Nagi smiles crookedly, noticing that her gratitude is so strong he feels it through the contract mark. She smiles at him one last time, giving him goosebumps, before rushing off to play with Helio. When he is left alone, exhaustion finally hits him like a truck and he mumbles, maybe I overdid it. He decides to go into the water to restore his mana. He thinks he will just take a short power nap to recover. He swims into the darkness, thinking he will sleep just a little. Suddenly, through the water, he hears the voice of Yona calling him. He slowly opens his eyes, wondering, maybe it's already morning. He jumps out of the water, greets Yona, and says how fun the banquet was. But Yona looks completely different. She reaches out to him, tears in her eyes. Nagi is confused. He notices that she suddenly became much taller than he remembers. It is then that she drops the bomb that will shake you. 3 years have passed. Nagi still hasn't recovered from the news. He was gone for a whole 3 years. It turns out the time skip hit hard while our guy was catching his magical Zekartaki. Yona just breaks down, explaining how every day she worried, did something terrible happen? He believes that Nagi simply pushed himself to zero for their sake. So Nagi begins to piece everything together and realizes, fighting giant monsters and holding that powerful barrier wall over the lake, all this must have exhausted his mana to zero. But the waiting finally comes to an end, and Yona meets him as warmly and kindly as never before. Our guy immediately notices, Yona is no longer just a child, he has grown up, and his characteristics have significantly leveled out and increased. Yona tells him to keep his eyes closed because a huge surprise awaits him. Nagi finally looked and froze. In front of him was a mansion, making his old house look like a shack of a gang of scavengers. This is a pure triumph from the peasants who wanted to make sure their savior has a place he can call home. Despite Nagi hesitating a little because of the luxury, he still steps over the threshold of his new base. The dwarves really went all out with the interior. But then Nagi notices something much more important, an egg sitting on a pedestal. He feels terribly painful that he left this baby alone for 3 years. Touching it, he realizes, the gacha gods were smiling, he can actually feel a heartbeat inside. Yona explains that the whole village took turns talking to the egg every day. When Nagi asks about monster attacks, Yona casually says that Philly and Suiko took over the patrols. Suddenly, a familiar face emerges from the fog. Suiko greets him, good morning, Dad, and she looks more magnificent than ever. It turns out Suiko stayed to protect the lake residents because Yona personally asked her. This is a colossal addition to the lore. Summoning and giving orders to such a high-ranking spirit as Suiko means that Yona's spirit magic has reached a limit. Her power is already at its peak. Nagi glows with pride, seeing how his protege has matured inside. But their quiet moment is cut short by a wild commotion rising outside. The entire vestibule comes to meet him back, and there is complete chaos. Nagi tries to apologize for the sudden disappearance, but the elven villain orders him to stop worrying about trifles. They have already prepared a huge banquet to celebrate his awakening. It turns out they all hid nearby to prank him. Nagi fully agrees to the party and tells Yona to invite all the other children too. The celebration is in full swing. The whole town comes out to see their lord. Etno explains that the Dark Elves have officially settled and are helping the fields yield abundant harvests. Nagi is a complete G and he says, if everyone who lives here gathers and decides together, then I have no reason to object. This kindness literally makes the Dark Elves cry tears. They start serving fresh salads garden to table, which look incredible. They even hint that Nagi should drop by Smithy and check out the new equipment they are already preparing. Garud, a burly gnome, finally appears to greet Nagi. Nagi thanks Garud for the house, but Garud says it was purely his pleasure. He admits that building houses for the community gave him a new sense of satisfaction. The area has transformed. From a camp, it has become a real city worthy of respect. The next day, Nagi goes out for a walk himself to see how the work is going. The city looks flourishing and peaceful as Yona leads him through the streets. They run into Almina, who is launching her new shop to showcase herself. Now they have a strong economy. They exchange materials from high-rank monsters for goods with neighboring villages. Quality of life has actually been raised to the maximum for everyone. Finally, they visited the smith to see Garud's latest masterpiece. Smithy looks professional and fully equipped. Garuda shows the blade he worked on and Nagi is instantly impressed. It is an elegantly decorated dagger that radiates quality. Garevri reveals that they found a mithril vein underground and asks Nagi to bless it. Since it was mined in Naga's domain, he can actually turn it into a legendary item. Nagi channels his water magic, and the blade flashes with an otherworldly glow. The gnomes are simply stunned by what they see. The blessing worked perfectly. The blade transformed into a true spirit sword. This is not just a rare drop now, it is one of the top 10 weapons in the entire world. Nagi let Yoni hold it, and the spirit power swirling around the child is just insane. The aura is so heavy that it literally ripples in waves in the air. John is struck by its beauty, but the raw power is so insane that he even feels a slight dizziness for a moment. Suddenly, someone crashes into the party with a panic scream. It's Luna and she looks completely on edge, exhausted by stress. Out and she immediately drops a huge bombshell. A dragon's messenger is standing just beyond the barrier. Nagi is left to guess what kind of high-level threat or message is about to be addressed to him. Nagi finds himself nose to nose with the messenger from the dragon village, the one who was looking for him. The man calls himself Danif and confirms that Nagi is the great spirit before announcing the heavy news. He carries an immense burden showing that he has come to fulfill the last request of the dark dragon, Lord Diazotis. Our guy is completely stunned by the mention of the last will. He feels that a terrible tragedy happened somewhere while he was away. They decide to move the conversation to a more private place to discuss the grim details of the dragon's death. It turns out that after Nagi saved Diazotis, the dragon lived a peaceful life in the abyss of eternal darkness near the dragon folk village. He peacefully coexisted with the peasants and did not cause any problems for anyone. Then the self-proclaimed envoy of the kingdom of Luginas arrived, called Diazotis an evil dragon, and demanded that the peasants hand him over. The dragonkin are not informers, so they directly and unconditionally refused to obey the order to betray a friend. This forced the kingdom to return with a whole army to plunder the village. The dragon-winged knights held their ground equally until the kingdom's heroes burst into the fight. The balance instantly shifted, and the village was torn apart. When his friends were killed, Diasoda stepped forward, unleashing his true power to push the invaders back. Even when the people retreated, the dragon knew they would still return again and again, sending even more trash mobs to sow suffering. He decided the only way to save the village was to go on a suicide mission and destroy the human forces once and for all. He left Danif one last request. If he did not return, take his child and give Nagi protection. With a heavy heart, he entrusted the future of his son Pelagius to the Great Spirit. Returning to reality, the burden of the brutal battle still hangs in the air just as Dina finishes her story. Suddenly, inside the basket that Danif brought, something begins to stir. The cutest little dragon appears, the Prince Pelagius, whom you have ever seen. The baby immediately falls for Nagi. He jumped right onto his lap without any hesitation. He is a complete gotcha cuteness winner. He presses his nose against Naga's hand. Nagi asks about the remains of his father and learns that the peasants buried him properly. Looking at that innocent little dragoness, Nagi feels his heart soften and thanks the dragons for their loyalty to his friend. He officially vows to take the child under his wing and protect him. Denif returns home and begs Nagi to protect the prince at any cost. A week passes and Nagi fully immerses himself in parental life. He swears to raise Pelagius into a legendary dragon. This little one is pure energy, chirping non-stop and ready to jump into battle. Nagi takes him deep into the forest every day for live combat training so he can level up faster. But they are not alone. Recently, some random slime started constantly following them. This little lump is like a cleaning squad. It eats everything that Valacius leaves behind after hunting. It is surprisingly intelligent and even tries to communicate with Nagi using gestures. The training stops as soon as they notice a huge shadow lurking in the bushes. It is a hippogriff, and it has the appearance of a person with a real character problem. A beast jumps from the trees, howling a battle cry at our guy. Pelagius does not hesitate. He meets the monster in the air with a harsh ramming headbutt. And the hippogriff has a deadly debuff. It releases a piercing scream. The sound wave hits Balaji's heart. He freezes in a stupor and grabs on to stay in the air. Nagi realizes that the scream has a paralyzing effect for the young dragon. It is pure, total pain. He relies on Pelagius's raw stats to pull through this fight. Even Sliz tries to cheer them on from the sidelines as the tension steadily rises. The hippogriff revels in the moment of stunning. It strikes, pushing Pelagius to the ground with a crash bones crunch with terrible force. The little dragon is pinned to the ground. He lies as if before being removed. But Nagi is about to pull the aggro and put an end to the bird's life. Something is changing in the air. Pelagius's eyes flash with a terrifying ancient glow. The extraordinarily large dark far suddenly expands and engulfs the entire area, covering it with absolute darkness. Nagi feels unbearable pressure. This is the true terrible power of the dark dragon. The monster realizes it has tangled with the wrong player and begins to panic as the gloom closes in around. The darkness is so thick that it seems to repel light by itself, a frightening oral horror that will break any ordinary creature. When the shadows finally dissipate, only a few feathers remain of the hippogriff. Pelagius breathes hoarsely on the ground. He instantly cleared the lobby with one jerk. Nagi rushed to him to patch up his tired little warrior after a tense awakening. He is incredibly proud and gives the dragon a well-deserved slap on the head. As soon as Pelagius returned to the food, Nagi felt two familiar presences approaching. The twins Neo and Luo suddenly appear out of nowhere. They explain that they were busy helping their master with magical research near the lake. Before Nagi can process their arrival, they drive him into a huge teleportation circle. He is effectively kidnapped without any warning. He finds himself in a room with an old man who apologizes for his student's lack of manners. The old man introduces the guest named Mutwo Hiraki. The man smiles smugly and drops a bombshell. He is another reincarnator from Japan, just like Nagi. Hiraki Mutwo sits opposite our guy, and it turns out he is a reincarnator from Japan exactly like Nagi. Nagi sweats cold drops because he clearly remembers this name has sounded somewhere before. They seal the deal with a handshake, and the guy tells Nagi to simply call him Hiyumu. This dude is cool. He immediately sees that Nagi is not a human, but a great spirit. Hiyumu decides to drop a loud revelation about himself. He admits that although he looks human, his true essence is a legendary sacred dragon. Suddenly little Bara just jumps out to greet, and Hiramu instantly recognizes him as the child of the dark dragon Diazotis. Hiram begins to tell how Diazotis was a reliable guy, but Nagi must sharply spoil the mood with his heavy news. Nagi's fist clenches as he prepares to deliver a report that will hurt. Diazotis has died. Hiramu is completely stunned. He cannot believe that such a top-tier power could be broken and folded. Nagi says that a messenger from the village of Dragonkin arrived personally to deliver the grim news. Jiromo sits down, looking completely shattered by the loss of his old friend. The old man joins the conversation and explains that the kingdom of Lagnus is starting to behave strangely. They plan to start a full-scale war against the Dragonkin village soon. To draw attention and justify the invasion, the kingdom uses ancient incidents like the attack on the treasury as a pretext. They pinned all the blame on the dark dragon just to have a reason to remove him from the way. Nagi points out how worthless this logic is, because it was the humans who kidnapped the egg and were the first to use forbidden magic. The old man explains that the situation is much more complicated than a simple misunderstanding. Forbidden magic is not something a person can naturally handle. It is a reserve of power for the underworld. This means that an entire kingdom can be secretly manipulated through demon interference. These demons are the true ultimate trolls who rebelled against the gods and use deceitful dark power. They hide in the shadows and secretly target other races to gather power for themselves. Harama saw only rage and declared that they must show people true horror when you create an enemy from a dragon. Nagi was not going to sit idly by and watch the village be wiped off the map. Harama agrees, recalling the promise he made to lend his power if everything goes awry. Nagi is ready to help, but worries that splashes and shockwaves might affect people caught in the crossfire. The old man agrees. Corrupt officials are the target, but citizens must not be harmed. He officially gives them the main task for this arc. Go to the village of Dragonkin and protect it from the approaching army of the kingdom of Ludginess. Nagi immediately accepts the mission, and the old man promises to investigate the demon's influence already in the capital. Hiromi looks at Nagi in his gaze both respect and guilt. He apologizes for losing his temper and dragging an innocent person into this mess. He is truly grateful for Naga's support before the upcoming battle. Alright, Nagi just smiles, saying that from the very moment he met Diazotas and took Barages under his wing, he was in no way uninvolved. He wants to protect this little one's native home and continue the will of the dragon who saved him. Hiromi only smiled indulgently, realizing that Nagi is quite an accepting guy, just as their mutual acquaintance Yuuki said. He said it was time to move, and the air begins to tremble with immense energy. Large white wings unfold and catch the light as they prepare to take off. Hiramu reveals his true form, a majestic white dragon that looks exactly like a boss unit. Nagi jumped onto his back for an immediate journey, while Baragius flew alongside. It seems to be a legendary party heading straight into the high-level zone. Before disappearing forever, Nagi summons the elves and explains why he needs to go to the Dragonkin village. He wants to make sure that this city is not drawn into the conflict while he is away. Little Yona steps forward and begs Nagi to take her with him this time. She is already pushing her stats to the maximum and insists that she can finally fight using the spirit sword. Nagi gently strokes her head, acknowledging that she has become stronger both in body and spirit. But instead of taking her to the combat zone, he asks her to be the best defender of the city during his absence. Yona accepts the mission with a determined look, promising to protect everyone while Nagi is away. Returning to the air, Nagi tells Baragius that he wanted to keep Yona away from the battle for her own safety. Baragius behaves like a complete sweetheart, snuggling up to Nagi as they fly through the clouds. Nagi admits he wasn't even sure it was worth taking the little guy with him. Since it was his father's resting place, he wanted to let the children feel respect and make him promise not to fight. Suddenly, the dragon's gaze Sharpench notices something on the horizon. The final goal finally emerges from the fog. The village of Dragonkinnick is a gigantic and beautiful settlement built among floating mountains and waterfalls. Our guy finally reached the very center of the storm to protect the innocent from the flames of war. Elder Rojas approaches to meet the squad in the village. He wonders if our guy Nagi really is a great water spirit along with the legendary sacred dragon Takamugo and the dark dragon Boreas. Nagi kindly nods to him, and little Baragius simply lets out a cute chirp. Rip Rojas clearly breathes a sigh of relief. He had been sweating with fear of the coming war all along. He explains that reconnaissance confirmed. The enemy army is only a few days away. Before the raid begins, Nagi wants to take the little one to the resting place of Diazotis. Rojas agrees to lead them to the Dragon Mausoleum, which towers on a gigantic floating rock formation. Arriving at the monument, Nagi silently and motionlessly looks at the statue of the fallen dragon. Looking at the ancient inscription on the stone, you feel the weight of the situation finally begin to press down. I remove comments about how peaceful this place is, a rare vibe for a world so wildly chaotic. The mood shifts instantly as soon as Borgias realizes where they are. The poor little dragon starts crying right on the stone, and that is enough to break anyone's heart. Nagi falls to his knees and touches the cold stone, whispering, "I really wanted to meet you again alive." He gives a solemn vow to protect the village and keep the dragon's legacy safe. Suddenly, a barely noticeable ghostly presence appears to thank him, and Nagi freezes completely in shock. He looks back at the empty statue and understands the stakes of this upcoming defensive mission. Considering they are already nearby, Hiramu suggests entering the Twilight Sanctuary, the place where the dragon once lived. They find a giant crater on the ground. It looks as if a nuclear bomb literally exploded. The group carefully leads themselves along the edge of the abyss to find the entrance to the hidden cave. As they run into the darkness, Nagi feels something is definitely wrong. He stops abruptly, sensing a mysterious aura spreading from the darkness. From the depths ahead in the tunnel, a coldness emanates that sends chills down the spine. Despite the red flags, Nagi decides to take the attention on himself and goes forward alone. Two shining empty eyes peer out of the darkness and look at him as if asking what he wants. Reddish? No, a dark-haired boy comes out with the look as if he hasn't slept for a whole decade, and Nagi gets acquainted. He is the spirit of water. This is Formus, the great spirit of darkness, and he is by no means delighted that guests have appeared in his domain. Nagi explains that he was simply paying respects to an old acquaintance who recently died. Formus looks completely indifferent to all sentimentality and just stares at Nagi with an empty gaze. He throws a mysterious phrase about the fact that Nagi does not quite resemble a spirit because he communicates with people too often. Before Nagi can ask about even more lore, Formus promises to remember everything and disappears right into the air. Hiramu is shocked Nagi just talked to the spirit of darkness like that. Over the next few days, they enjoy a short break with the dragon intelligent beings, who turn out to be perhaps the nicest NPCs in the entire history. Nagi sees how they live peacefully and realizes he cannot allow any trash mobs to spoil this village. He sits alone, twisting inside himself the determination to protect these people, no matter what happens. But peace does not last long. Hiramu receives news. The enemy army has finally moved forward. Hiram adopts a serious tone and asks Nagi if he is really ready to engage in a clash with other people. Our guy admits he has fought before but never once looked at human life or took it away. He knows he must steel himself because this is a critical fight for the survival of everything dear to him. Hiram confesses that his own human consciousness is rapidly fading and frankly, it scares him a little. He tells Nagi that speaking to him in Yuki's language is the only thing that reminds him he was once human too. They agree to stop this conflict as soon as possible, just as a messenger bursts in. The army of the Kingdom of Lugness has finally arrived, and they are not joking. The sky is clear, but the air is heavy with the smell of blood. From the cliff down, they see a huge camp spread out on the plains with 20,000 troops. On the other side, the Dragonkin have only 200 elite knights and about 3,000 regular soldiers. Dragon Knights are sturdy fighters. Each is worth 200 men, but the enemy has hero-class warriors capable of taking them down alone. Nagi narrows his eyes. He senses 5 distinct, extraordinarily strong presences among the enemy ranks. Suddenly the ground trembles. A gigantic magical circle flares up, illuminating the sky. The enemy wastes no time launching an elite summoning ritual that looks like a nightmare. From the swirling energy, a colossal creature begins to take shape. It is a giant armored golem. It covers the entire forest, radiating a terrifying aura that causes ordinary soldiers to freeze dead in fear. Nagi admits the enemy summoners are actually quite skilled to pull off such a trick. The Titan fires a direct, gigantic energy beam at our guy. Nagi doesn't even flinch. He steps forward and with one hand blocks the entire explosion. He orders Hiram to take the helm, and his buddy doesn't hesitate for a moment, dashes forward and begins a partial transformation into a dragon. Hiram's strike is so powerful that in one move he completely disrupts the enemy's battle flow. Nagi smiles crookedly, thinking he's on top now, but his spider sense starts to tremble and beep. In the blink of an eye, a deadly blade slashes through the air and Nagi absorbs the blow, not even having time before the dragon can shout his name. Between Dragon Village and the Kingdom of Luginas, a war has just broken out and everything immediately goes awry when an assassin tries to take our guy Nagi out of the game. But Nagi is not some trash mob that can be caught off guard. He actually used himself as bait to lure. The assassin caught him in a water trap, even before he could deliver a deadly blow. His allies are completely stunned. He is unharmed, and Nagi is already thinking 3 steps ahead. He understands this is not just a random thug, this is someone with the skill of a hero. He hands the prisoner over to the guards to keep the scoundrel under watch. When the home base is securely locked, he decides to break directly into the enemy camp to find Harama. So far, Harama is definitely clearing the hall against the so-called heroes. He strikes a heavy blow and clearly makes his opponents understand. One of the heroes, a burly bearded man, boils with rage and calls him a creature resembling a gecko. Haramu only flashes a smile, asking his opponents, "Is that all it takes to corner a hero?" The third hero tries to sneak up from the side and deliver a sudden blow, thinking he has found a vulnerable spot. She screams that he has nothing but gaps, but now she finds out. In Haramu there is 0 delay. He easily flies through their coordinated attacks, like a pro gamer playing on a Smurf account. He catches a huge axe with his bare hands. The difference in strength is just too great. With one lightning-fast kick, he sends the female knight flying, while simultaneously preventing the bearded man from approaching. Watching from the side, Nagi realizes Hiram has the power to effortlessly take down all 3 heroes. While Haramu holds the front line, Nagi feels a creepy presence nearby. He follows the destruction left after Haramu's dragon breath attack. He finds the source and comes upon a secluded tent, sensing a human presence inside. Inside, we see a hooded conscript who completely loses self-control trying to loot the treasure chests. She panics because Nagi previously destroyed her demon summoner with 1 arrow, and that was definitely not part of her plan. Nagi casually enters and begins preparing his water magic. He traps her in a shimmering water barrier wall and gives her a chance to surrender without violence. And the summoner believes it's a bluff and refuses to fool himself. She pulls out a grimoire and summons a burly minotaur to crush Nagi. Our guy doesn't even flinch manipulating water. He cuts right through the beast's path. He completely paralyzes the minotaur, trapping it in a block of enchanted water, and the sorcerer healer is sweating profusely. In despair, she releases her next summon, a giant fish-like monster named Bakwana. It looks like a nightmare from the depths, looming over Nagi like a giant. It raises a giant whirlpool, trying to swallow Nagi whole. The enchantress thinks she finally landed a kill shot. Nagi stands right in front of her huge maw full of sharp teeth, and he feels no fear at all. Calmly, he reminds her, "Water is for me," and takes complete control over the monster's very element. A continuous avalanche of water explodes, shattering the summon and the summoner's faith in one blow. The explosion throws the girl into the air and she realizes she has been completely outmatched. Nagi looks her straight in the eyes and says that choosing him as an opponent was a bad idea. She looks at him as if a god were literally in front of her, and cannot understand why her magic of such a level does not work. In a desperate final attempt, she burns all the remaining mana to summon heavy artillery Hydra and Hecaton chair. Huge magical circles flare in the air as she summons ancient horrors. These multi-headed monsters appear with a terrible aura that would make any normal soldier faint. She also pulls out a behemoth, a giant elephant-like tank creature. She shouts to her monsters to kill that man and they launch a combined attack. A giant log falls with a swing on Nagi, threatening to crush the entire area. The battle heats up to the limit as three heroes realize they are completely outmatched by this absolute monster. The villain only smirks crookedly at their pathetic struggle, mocking the very idea of a hero as he prepares to end the raid. Fraser tries to grasp a desperate move, but she is instantly and harshly crushed in a single merciless exchange. The way their comrade was smashed like that finally knocks the ground out from under the remaining knights. They swear that her death will not be in vain, and squeeze out mana to the limit for one last desperate combo. They unleash their highest skills chronostamicals, and Hazan Tenjiki hoping to break through the crazy defense of the freaks. The explosion is colossal, illuminating the entire battlefield with a power enough to erase a whole lobby. For a moment, the knights really think they have already secured the W. But that hope instantly disappears when the devastating counterbeam tears through the smoke. From the dust emerges the villain with a few scratches on his body, and declaring that it is all over dramatically descends to nothingness. The heroes lie broken on the ground. Meanwhile, Hiramu watches from the side and decides whether he needs to pull our guy Nagi out. MC is busy dealing with a nightmarish multi-armed monster, straight out of horror. Nagi tries to keep his distance, maneuvering through a barrage of heavy blows from the trash mob. He tries to drown the beast in a giant whirlpool of water magic. It seems the combination is reliable, but the scale of the monster is too large, too cumbersome. Suddenly the beast opens its jaws wide and Nagi realizes he has just walked right into a trap himself. The monster not only takes the hit, it also absorbs water to fuel its own attack. Nagi understands. He is trembling all over while the beast prepares to strike back. The Hydra heads gather together and spray deadly doses of Hydra poison everywhere. Nagi barely manages to cover himself, but the poison is already starting to eat away at his defense. He is completely surrounded by strong mobs, and his usual set won't help here. He knows a usual strike right away against three bosses won't work. His usual fighting style is completely unsuitable for the situation here. When pressed to the edge, he dives deep into his mental library, searching for the forbidden sheet code. Right in the center of the forbidden archive, he comes across a huge tome locked with heavy chains. He feels an incredible power emanating from the book, and it was sealed for a very dark reason. Even knowing it's forbidden, Nagi understands. If he wants to survive, he has no choice. He reaches his hand out, his fingers tremble as he prepares to break the seal. To break through this situation, he is ready to pay any price, the one demanded by the gacha gods. With a deafening crack, the chains break and a dazzling light engulfs his sight. He opens his eyes and the gaze in them is no longer human, cold like that of a true monster hunter. The demon girl who was watching from the shadows is completely stunned by the sudden change in mana. Nagi begins to hum the forbidden art of the spirit, and even the momentary air starts to tremble from the pure intent to kill. Three monsters rush to attack, but they do not realize that they have already lost. Nagi's gaze aims at the target and pierces their defenses through and through. He calmly stands in the very eye of the storm while his mana begins to rewrite the very laws of physics. He whispers the name of the technique, Mist Annihilation Realm. In a moment, the giant monsters vanish from reality, leaving only dust in tiny particles. The demonic girl trembles from shock and does not understand what just happened after seeing such a terrifying power. The monsters do not even leave behind a drop of loot, they simply disappear, like a glitch in the Matrix. Naga's body finally reaches its limit. He collapses powerless as his strength begins to fade. He realizes he gave too much strength, and the backlash hits him like a truck. He remembers the wasted Annihilation Realm, a technique that turns the target into mist and erases it completely. Even bleeding from his eye, Nagi manages to contain the remaining mist with a water curtain so it doesn't kill him immediately. He shifts his gaze to the demon girl, finally regained consciousness. Hermu explains that the second prisoner committed suicide before they could extract any information from him. Nagi wakes up and sees Hiram standing over their new catch. It is the hero who summoned the flame giant, but she is definitely not human. Nagi shows his horns and the huge magical presence proves she is a demon. Hiramu is certain this is the very demon they were warned about. Hiramu is not joking and asks, "Kill her here." The girl begins to suffocate from the magical seal, forcibly suppressing the urge to vomit. She needs to say something, anything. She finally manages to scream, "I am a demon, I will tell you everything I know. Please, I beg you just listen to me." But as soon as she is about to tell everything, she vomits blood. The silent curse activates immediately. Nagi realizes that she is being purified by her own kind and tries to intervene. The girl is already on the verge of eternal game over the poison takes her, and it is impossible to stop it. Nagi manages to use magic and stabilize her, but Hiram thinks he is too soft. Nagi just smiles, tells his brother that lies don't work on him and that he knew she was sincere. However, he clarifies, if she turns out to be a threat, he will personally take care of her. They understand, demons cast silencing spells to protect their secrets from humans. Returning to the village, Nagi finally gets a well-deserved rest. He is greeted by the loyal dog Agis, who is so happy that his master returned safe and sound. Nagi finally gives the little one a few gentle pats on the head, and tired from the exhausting ordeal finally relaxes. The war against Kingdom Luginas ended in a complete victory in just 5 hours. Nagi cannot help but think about how mercilessly and terribly demonic creatures deal with their own. He knows that the war against the demons is still very far from over. And now he will simply enjoy the silence for which he fought so hard. Several weeks have passed since the war against Luginas ended. Our Nagi is now in recovery mode, lying low in the village and regaining strength, while the elders await a response from the sage. So far, the demon lady they captured since she woke up behaves like a complete candy sweetheart. It is strange and somewhat jarring to see a former threat become so soft while she plays with her caretaker. It turned out that she lost all her memories starting from the age of 8. The sage thinks that this mental regression might be an ugly side effect of the spell that was supposed to suppress the voice but malfunctioned. Even after the memory wipe, she remains a person of interest, so they plan a meeting to discuss what will happen next for the kingdom. Nagi insists that he is already fine, but his mana is still leaking from his hands like a dripping faucet. When he finally meets Agatsuma as that girl, Mashris just keeps sweating the whole time while they are both in the same room. She clings to her caretaker, Sina, seemingly the only one capable of keeping her calm. The sage unleashes a gigantic lore bomb strike, revealing that Mashris is not a purebred demon at all. She is a half-blood forced to learn elite summoning magic, and this placed insane pressure on her soul. Naga's treatment actually saved her life, but her consciousness regressed to a childlike state only to endure trauma when her true self was erased. She is not pretending, she is literally hysterical because she senses Naga's overpowering presence and perceives it as a demon's aura. It becomes dark when it dawns on her. Demons actually used her as a disposable battery to feed their monsters. Agatsuma explains that after the war in Luginas, everything looked incredibly suspicious. When he went to investigate, the guards immediately tried to restrain him. He realized the entire army was brainwashed by baddie demons. Instead of wasting time, the sage struck his staff on the ground and cast a de-brainwashing spell over the entire royal land. The sheer scale of his mana is terrifying. He cleanses the whole city with a single burst of light. Unfortunately, by the time he cleared the lobby, the demon's plan was already fully completed. The situation is tipping into the abyss. They snatched a whole bunch of users of spirit magic and slaves from the crowd. Agatsuma is sure. The demons are plotting something, a disaster on the scale of the end of the world with all those kidnapped mages. Even the Dragon King is about to rush into battle. One of his kin was destroyed during the chaos. Nagi is entrusted to appeal to the great spirits to prepare for the coming storm. The problem is that most of the great spirits are neutral and indifferent to human quarrels. Nagi knows if they want to survive, he cannot relax. Before leaving, Nagi hands over a magical folio that they stole from a demon woman. Looking at the forbidden spells inside, the sages froze in shock. The level of the Masher's monsters made them call for help. He decides that the best thing is for her to stay in the temple to cleanse that harmful impurity that still holds by magic. He reaches out his hand to calm her. "You have gone through so much pain until now, but now you can finally rest peacefully," he says quietly. This is a rare emotional moment. The Mashers finally allow tears to flow. The sage jokes that in his time, he encountered much more problematic students. When everything was settled, Nagi heads back to his home base near the lake. After a long journey through the clouds, finally he reaches the outskirts of the village. He is truly shocked to see that the town has grown significantly while he was away. Yona and Ruto notice him immediately and run swiftly to meet him for the long-awaited reunion. Their greeting words, the welcome back, strike so deeply that anyone's heart would melt. Obviously, the village has been steadily upgrading since he left. The population grew not just by chance, new races are gathering to join the squad. And Nagi sees a huge scaly tail sliding through the grass. From the Lamia tribe, a group steps forward. They are looking to offer their services to the Lord of the Lake. Just like the Dark Elves, they are an oppressed people seeking protection. Nagi, like an absolute trump card, meets them with open arms. The limping leader clearly breathes a sigh of relief as soon as he finds a place where he won't be chased. Nagi simply wants everyone to live happily after all that thrown pile of dirt they had to deal with. But wait, that's not all. A group of burly dwarves has also moved to this city. They officially requested to become residents of the growing community. As a sign of goodwill, they give Nagi a gift wrapped in cloth. It is a masterful saber made with incredible precision and care. Rudo's eyes literally sparkle as he looks at the blade. Nagi let the child hold it, then decides to simply give it to him as a motivational booster. He will keep it safe until Rudo truly learns how to properly swing a sword. The city is growing terribly, so Nagi understands. The barrier magic needs to be expanded. He orders the children to gather Philly and the rest of the main team for a meeting at his estate. When everyone gathers in his huge living room, Nagi throws a heavy request at them. Meet with the Elf King as an invoice. He tells them exactly that. They need the cooperation of the elves to deal with the demonic plans concerning the spirits. Philadelphia and the team are ready to give their all. But Fail looks too serious and decides to act separately for a while. Nagi feels that something is wrong but trusts his comrade. When the group is preparing to leave the next day, Nagi stops them. He pulls out a huge spirit stone burning with pure energy. He says they need a high-level item like this for the Elf King to finally take them seriously as spirit envoys. When the mission officially starts, Nagi watches them leave and realizes the stakes have never been higher. Philadelphia and the team finally returned from their 2-month campaign to the Elven Kingdom. But they did not return alone. They brought an extremely ceremonial retinue, which made everyone tremble a little inside. At the front stands Wilrian Lanuja Finrelt, the true crown prince of the kingdom. Neji will definitely be sweating, because he originally intended Philly to be only an envoy, not to pull the heir back to the throne. He realizes too late that Lunisha literally translates from Elvish as crown prince. Neji tries to understand how it escalated so quickly. Philly explains. As soon as they arrived, the royal guard almost immediately escorted them to the palace. They felt a huge presence of Neji through the spirit stones. Next to the great being, they completely lost sensitivity for so long and no longer understood how much our guy really is a big deal for us. Neji admits that it also slipped his mind when he realized. Now he must be more careful because he is drawing the aggression of the great world powers. The prince falls to one knee and raises a letter sent by King Lucian himself. Even despite the formality, Neji feels the king's genuine desire to establish harmonious relations. He sighs with relief. Now they can finally form a close connection between the two territories. The prince is all for zero delay in cooperation and wants to hear Neji's version. Neji does not hold back. He pours out everything to the last detail about the kingdom of Luginus and the dark dragon Diazotis. He even reveals the truth about the demons pulling all the strings behind the scenes. The prince listens about the demons and the disappearance of spirit mages, and he looks as if a bunch of heavy debuffs have been applied to him. Nagi wants the elves to become a bridge for communication with other great spirits, in order to anticipate time. Instead, the prince asks for a huge favor due to the illness of the former king. Nagi only barely smiles and extends some special water, explaining that it is the same thing that healed the curse placed on the true dark dragon. The prince is completely exhausted. He finally realizes that this is the cure for the legendary forbidden curse. As soon as the elves clear the lobby, a new group of visitors arrives at the entrance. This time they are beastkin and they waste no time, immediately addressing Nagi as the great spirit of water. Fail has returned and brought with him several burly guards, such as Sharo. They came from the Beastkin Federation to discuss the pact and strengthen their ties. Nagi is still trying to cope with the sudden influx of guests, when one of the creatures can already begin to change. The smoke cloud disperses and we see the truth. As it turned out, it is actually Prince Farian, the third Prince of Judars, who ran away from home to wander with the group. To get down to business, they moved the conversation inside the mansion. Faron explains that he has already reported to his father about Naga's power. His servant is also quite certain of Naga's divinity because of the fierce barrier protecting the lake. Nagi is simply glad that they finally think alike. They immediately dive into the documents to finalize the alliance. The terms are clear. Nagi is considered an independent military unit and no additional forces will be required from him. Nagi adds a caveat: he will not help if Judars becomes the aggressor in the war. They agree to protect each other's citizens and keep trade honest and moderate. This is a solid agreement without any loopholes. Both sides are set for joint work and are already eager to start. They seal the agreement with a handshake, cementing a large-scale redistribution of power in the region. Nagi is already planning his next move to Dragonkin Village, but the team is worried. He is pushing the limits of his luck. He wants to propose an anti-demonic alliance and establish their trade relations. The children promise to guard the lake until the boss is back in place. Nagi insists that he must leave because he has to meet someone in person. He reunites with the Dragon King's group together with Yona and Almina. After the introductions are over, it turns out that Yona is Naga's contractor. Next, they decide to head to the forbidden sanctuary of eternal darkness. But before they leave, Nagi calls Formus for a one-on-one conversation. Formus looks as if he has seen a ghost and tells Nagi to stay alert. He drops a bombshell: "You have abused your power." So Nagi is a newborn being, so his existence is unstable. If he continues like this, he might literally disappear right now. Nagi sweats with fear because he is afraid that if he falls asleep, he won't be able to handle the demons. Formus explains, since his soul is linked to his contractor, they will wake him when the world truly needs him. He tells Nagi that it's time to trust his guys and take a long, deep sleep. Nagi finally understands. He cannot carry the entire server on his own. He watches the children sleep and finally realizes he has been trying to carry everything by himself all this time. He reflects on his duty as a powerful being, and Yona catches him already sleeping with his eyes open. Yona worries and tells him he needs to rest before he breaks down. While Nagi tries to speak, his body literally begins to turn into water before her eyes. His hands literally liquefy as soon as the mana reaches zero. Yona notices that he is already completely exhausted, and in a pleading tone asks him to lie down and sleep. Nagi resists. He says he must protect them, but Yona will not tolerate this. She tells him by allowing them to help, he is actually making the city stronger. She reminds him of all the times he saved them, and says that now it is finally their turn to repay. She/her squeezes his hands and begs him to stop, not to corner himself. She pleads, "Rely on us more." Seeing her resolute face, Nagi understands she is right. He finally agrees to give himself a break for some time. Well, Nagi returns to the lake earlier than expected, leaving the trading affairs to Almina. Helio cries, unable to hold back tears, and vows to become stronger to be useful. Nagi tells Yona to protect everyone while he is away. He promises that he will definitely return to them someday. Likewise, everyone gathers together and prays as the Great Spirit begins to fade. Nagi casts them one last look goodbye and completely dissolves. The water sparkles as he merges again with the lake. Yona tries to hold back tears as the boss logs out of the system. "Good night, Lord Nagu, until the day we meet again." Then one drop hits the surface and it means the long-awaited moment has finally come. Yona immediately senses a change in the air. Instincts scream that something colossal is about to happen. With a barely audible whisper, he finally realizes the truth. Lord Nagi has awakened. He does not lose a single second and rushes to the source of that incredible power. The water itself begins to swirl and accelerate, and it bursts back with force. The return of their leader manifests in a literal energetic tidal wave. Nagi steps forward, looking as if he hasn't aged a day, and meets Yona with a calm smile as if to say, "Our guy is finally back in the game." Even the dragon Belgius cannot contain his excitement. As soon as Nagi reaches out to him, he behaves like a complete puppy. 5 long years have passed, and while Nagi was on forced AFK, the world never stopped moving, so the legendary Agatsuma arrives to report on the state of the kingdom. Returning to the manor, Nagi freezes at what he sees. Towering skyscrapers pierce the sky, and it looks more like a modern city than a fairy tale village. It turned out that the dwarves literally took Naga's witty remarks about high building density to heart, and using their masterful crafting skills, built concrete jungles. The city has turned into a trade hub with teleportation circles and underground passages, but mention demons and Naga's attention instantly shifts. For 3 years, demons have been playing mad scientists, transforming monsters into absolute nightmares to terrorize the continent. These are not just ordinary scoundrels, they nearly destroyed entire nations of beastmen and dragonkin. Yona explains that even this city was under siege, but he took up the task, became a top DPS, and defended their home. But he was not alone. The water spirit Suiko held an impenetrable barrier to protect the civilians. Nagi sincerely prides himself on how much they have grown, but Suiko shows. After the last battle, something terrible was left behind. She shows a serrated gemstone the color of obsidian, dug out from one of the defeated monsters. Nagi takes the stone, and his face darkens. He feels corruption radiating from it. This is not just a random drop, it has exactly the same cursed aura as the forbidden child, Diazotis. When Nagi examines it, the stone suddenly releases deep red blood, revealing its true form, a corrupted fire spirit crystal. The room grows cold as Suiko explains. These crystals are the hearts of spirits, and that means demons literally cut out spirits to fuel their war machine. It was most likely a weaker fire spirit, and it had no chance. Naga's hands tremble as he clenches the crystal, and his calm finally shatters into pure rage. They attack my village, torture the spirits, desecrate them. I will never forgive them, he declares, and the fire in his eyes burns with cold fury. The unbearable force of his intent to kill is so heavy that the children are about to break under the pressure. Seeing the tension, Agatsuma claps his hands to break the spell and suggests putting an end to it while Nagi restores his mana. Nagi quiets down, but the fire in his eyes does not fade. Late that night, Nagi thanks the old man for stopping the quarrel before Nagi completely lost control. Agatsuma does not soften his words. He immediately pokes Nagi with a question, asking him to represent the spirits at the nearest union council. This is a gigantic union, gathering the heaviest forces of humans, elves, gnomes, and dragon clans. Nagi hesitates. He feels that he is too uninformed to lead the other great spirits. And Agatsuma reveals that the spirits darkness, lava, desert, and thunder have already sworn their blades to serve this cause. They made it clear that they are carrying this union only because Nagi leads it. When Nagi hears that the meeting is scheduled in 5 days, at the zero notification about it, he almost loses his mind. Agatsuma insists that the training arc is not timely, and that Naga's presence is mandatory. Let's fast forward 5 days and a huge teleportation circle flashes, bursting into life. They arrive in the heart of the Onashia Empire, a country that seems to have exhausted all the slots of its magical tech tree. This is an impregnable fortress, so only here should the World Summit take place. They enter the council hall. The air there is so thick that even if you breathe on a dragon, it will suffocate. Again, all the key leaders of the world are here, and each has the feeling as if they are about to melt from sweat. Nagi notices a familiar face in Hiramu, the right hand of the Dragon King, and he looks as if he hasn't slept for a week. Hiramu admits he is stuck in endless cleansing, trying not to let the vengeful dragons run wild. Agatsuma steps forward and reminds everyone the demon threat is no longer postponed. He throws down the hammer and tells the kings, if they do not stop playing each on their own and start acting as a team, they are all ready. King Venava of the dwarves raised the question that was on everyone's mind. What exactly does the solution to this problem look like? Agatsuma clenches his fist and says that his vision indicates a full war will break out in 3 years, and they have only one option: victory. The entire hall is instantly paralyzed by a wave of pure fear. Everyone remembers the legends of ancient wars. Even when the gods were on their side, the Alliance never managed to see it through to the end. This war left the world in ruins, and the demons were never completely driven out. Agatsuma tells them not to despair, but the historical trauma clearly hits each one too painfully. Nagi quietly listens while they discuss how that past hero managed to defeat the Demon King. The kings tried to cope, insisting that demons should not be as powered up as in the Golden Age. They look at Nagi and Hirama and realize, when dragons and great spirits are on their side, chances for a fight appear. The mood cuts sharply and the room explodes with applause, because they convince themselves they can really win this. But amid the celebrations in the crowd, one man wears a suspiciously sly smile. Nagi instantly reads the mood of this guy, and before anyone can blink, he casts a water prison and pins the man in place. Silence falls in the hall while the man struggles against the colossal pressure of spiritual magic. Other nobles think Nagi has gone mad. They demand an explanation for why he is attacking a person. But Nagi does not flinch, meaning he felt such fierce malicious hatred that no human can have. When he speaks, the man's skin begins to melt like cheap plastic, and out emerges a terrifying, scarred face of a demon scout who was hiding among them. The interrogation starts with a cold demand to tell the truth. First, what is your name? This demon spy is dripping with sweat, while the crystal blade only slightly scratches his cheek. He tries to pretend to be silent, but the highest-level players have gathered in this room. They are not here for games. The old man warns, if you choose silence before activating the high-level torture spell. The demon is struck by a lightning flash, and he lets out a scream that would make even a trash mob tremble. Nagi Arbui is forced to use his healing magic to prevent the spy's health bar from dropping to 0, otherwise his torment will last forever. I will speak, just stop. The spy screams, and it becomes clear this is Junus, an agent of the demon army. He was sent to gather intelligence about the allies' meeting. His true mission is to investigate the great spirits and dragons. Nagi leans closer, a terrible aura emanates from him, and he asks, what do you plan to do with them regarding the kidnapped spirit mages? He orders the spy, tell everything you know. The truth is harsh. They brainwash the mages and sacrifice spirits to fuel the dark ritual. During the resurrection of the Demon King, Junus screams, and his face twists as if he is being turned into a demonic nightmare. He starts laughing as soon as the body inflates and bursts, mocking. Supposedly, they will all be slaughtered. Nagi has no lag at all, immediately deploys a barrier to contain the huge explosion. It turned out the demon did not just commit suicide, another demon remotely detonated him from outside to keep him silent. Side characters completely lost self-control in panic, because they fear they cannot defeat the legendary boss. The old man stops the panic, noting, the Demon King has not yet returned. They need to gather strength and crush everything on the path to power before the enemy has time to prepare. We will choose a hero, declares the old man, as if already ready to lead the world's first raid. The council decides that the Holy Church Arnis will conduct the ritual, and the meeting finally ends. Several weeks pass as the world prepares for the approaching storm. A messenger named Donan arrives at the estate to bring news that will change everything. He explains that 5 heroes were chosen through a divine prophecy. A child holding a spirit sword power. He looks intently at our guy's comrade and says, "This boy is none other than Lord Yona." It seems that the oracle is definitely absolute, and these chosen heroes receive the sacred blessing and the sign of the gods. Yona unbuttons his shirt, a shining water divine sign flashes on his chest. The church wants to snatch Yona and take him to the Grand Cathedral for serious power leveling. Nagi understands. This means his contract partner is being taken away and silently freezes. Although Nagi is by no means worried about the gambling situation, Yona's gaze is full of determination. "I will become a water hero," he declares, striving to protect everyone he cares about. In 3 days it's time to depart and Yona says goodbye. The townspeople leave in doubt. They know the church is involved, but they rejoice for Yona. A little girl clings to him and cries, telling how incredible her older brother is. Everyone shouts to him, supports him, presses, "Take it to the max." However, Helio stands behind and looks completely broken. Yanag notices his friend but does not know what to say. Now there is a huge gap in social status between the chosen hero and everyone else. Nagiu watches the drama, feeling the tension in the air. When the sun sets, Nagi admits to himself, it will be lonely without a partner. He notices how Yona sneaks out of the house in the middle of the night. Our guy decides to follow him in his spiritual form to find out what is happening. Yona meets Helio deep in the forest. Helio behaves coldly and asks what business the hero of the Holy Church has with me. He is clearly in pain and tells Yona that he does not want to hear any excuses. Helio admits he is happy that Yona has worked full-time for 8 years. Then he explodes, shouting, "Why are you on the side of the Holy Church?" Nagi realizes that Helio is right, because in this story there is no shortage of darkness. Dark elves were originally ordinary elves who were kidnapped by demons, and then transformed into a new race through vile experiments. Instead of helping them, the church declared them heretics and began cruel persecutions. Helio remembers how they were persecuted and driven away from every community until they came across Lake Nagi. Helio cannot believe it. Yona is joining the very people who caused so much suffering to his race. But Yona's betrayal is not simple. He decided to go under their roof for a certain reason. "I have another goal," he tells his friend, and he looks him in the eyes as if trying to read him through and through, and reveals his plan to force the Pope to cancel the accusations that dark elves are heretics. He knows a request from a hero will indeed be heard, unlike a request from a half-elf. That was his plan from the very beginning. But Yona wants to change reality for the dark elves, whom he loves so much. He wants to be like Lord Nagi and save those who are wronged. Helio trembles with tears, apologizing for having treated his friend so coldly. He promises, while Yona is absent, he will protect the city and Nagi with everything he has. "I will become stronger," he swears through tears. He tells Yona let him return whole. They seal the promise with a bra fist. Nagi watches from the shadows, proud that his guys are sweeping the lobby of their own doubts. Finally, the day has come when Yona must leave Lakeside Town and start the next quest. His family definitely feels the weight of this moment, a reminder that he always has somewhere to return to. Yona does not go alone. Suiko sticks with him to back him up while he swears to return a true hero. It turns out Suiko is not the only one who has risen. A new spirit named Suko has just been born to watch over the city. Before the party sets off, Nagi gives Yona a mysterious gift. It is a completely new spirit sword. Created specifically for Yona's growth, the old gear was already starting to look like starter-tier weaponry. Nagi wants him to take these 2 bad boys in both hands and fight as a pair to maximize training. To keep them connected across the entire map, Nagi reminds. The contract seal allows Yona to call for backup as soon as things get bad. This is a huge reinforcement because, as Nagi says, my strength is also Yona's strength. Donan takes the lead in guarding Yona while they prepare to set out. Suddenly Helio runs in all sweaty because he has been praying for their safety all this time. Yona's departure to save the world ignited a fire in Helio and Rudo. As they wave goodbye, Helio realizes he is tired of being a secondary character. He tells Nagi directly, "I want to become stronger." He wants to protect the squad just like Yona does. Helio immediately enters his training arc, pouring every drop of sweat into practice to hone his spear to mastery. He works every day breaking goals to raise his DPS. Rudo does not slack anywhere, diving deep into spirit magic, so both can push each other to the limit. They all look at the prize, and even Rudo declares that he will one day defeat his older brother. This peace does not last long because Agatsuma arrives, looking completely broken, and begs Nagi for help with pleading words. He delivered a bunch of heavy lore news. An ancient monster once sealed has broken free. The demons officially resurrected Cerberus, the legendary three-headed hellhound. The children lose their balance. They thought this monster was just a myth. This is not some trash mob, this is a world boss-level threat that devastated everything during the Great War of Gods and Demons. Agatsuma admits that they really cannot kill it, so their only condition for victory is to reseal the monster. Nagi, without hesitation, takes aggro on himself and leaves Suiki to defend the home base while he goes to deal with the threat. They instantly teleport, leaving the others behind. They land deep in the mountains, a place so remote that no one would notice demons summoning a nightmare. If they do not stop Cerberus here, the beast will head straight to the nearest villages and wipe out all the lobby. Juro and Yuki are already on the scene, they just managed to scratch the monster. Nagi is introduced to the heavyweights Menafi, Rodo, Trix, and Vicolt, who together make up the 5 sages. These guys are elite mages of this world, from alchemists to binding masters. Even with such firepower, the aura emanating from Cerberus is pure malice. One of the sages jokes that it could be made a pet, but quickly realizes this monster is on a completely different level. So Nagi gives the command to start preparations for sealing. Since this spell is a huge-scale ritual, its activation will take quite some time. Cerberus notices them and charges headlong, starting a run and forcing the group to act before he reaches civilian areas. Nagi orders everyone to prepare for the strike, while he himself prepares to release a giant wave. He unleashes a whole stream of water that cuts through the air like a blade. The water crystallizes into sharp projectiles and rains down on the beast. The attack looks as if it hit the target directly from a great distance. The projectiles struck the beast's 3 heads, stunning it for a moment. Jiromo tries to use the opening moment, but Cerberus has one trick up his sleeve. In the blink of an eye, the beast completely disappears from the battlefield. He performs a pro-gamer trick, teleports right behind the hero for an unexpected flank. The monster lunges forward sharply and sinks its teeth into Hiramu's arm even before he can react in any way. Hiramu bleeds and cannot understand what kind of braking mechanism has been set up against him. Nagi realizes the situation is critical. The beast is enveloped in toxic haze. Moreover, its spatial teleportation makes it almost impossible to control. The sages are sweating, pushing the seal to the limit and begging for a few more seconds of cover. Nagi and Hiramu exchange glances. They understand. It's time to stop holding back and unleash the full power of the dragon and the water team tandem. Cerberus is a real problem. He can teleport and constantly spreads miasma everywhere. But Nagi is different. Her body is healing water, so she can actually touch this trash mob and not catch corruption. If she can withstand petrification from a basilisk, she can definitely endure some dog stench. Suddenly, as the beast prepares to strike, a dark portal opens. Nagi does not hesitate and rushes headlong straight into the danger zone. Cerberus jumps out of the shadow portal, and our girl is already ready to pull aggro. She creates a giant water vortex to catch the beast. Then Hiramu encourages her as she drives the monster into a trap and holds it. It turns out her healing form with healing water is a tough counterpick against miasma. Cerberus realizes it is losing and resorts to a dirty trick, trying to drag Nagi into another dimension. Hiramu rushes into battle to stop the teleportation and shouts so wildly, "I won't let this happen." 2 dragons fight the 3-headed nightmare, holding it pinned to the ground while water splashes everywhere. The sage silently watches from the side and asks, "How are you? Are you 2 okay?" Because the power level in this fight is already reaching the limit where everything is about to explode. Nagi realizes there is little time left and shouts back, "Don't make up nonsense. If I let go, she will slip away." On the go, she invents a high Aiki move and plans to transform into a water ball to trap the beast. Hiramu is desperate for her but calmly explains, "It's okay, I am water." She literally plans to use the shockwave from the breath attack to scatter her own body in order to break free from the seal. The countdown begins. Tension rises to the maximum. On the count of 2, Nagi is completely shackled in the terrifying monster's water prison. The sage shouts right now as soon as the final signal sounds. A massive beam of energy pierces the water sphere, and Cerberus with zero delay crashes into the ground, thundering against the soil. When the smoke clears, only a small black sphere remains where the monster was. Nagi remodels her body, exhaling with relief. They were not caught under the constant prohibition of that ceiling. Nagi is simply happy that everyone is safe and smiles as if to show the battle is finally won. She says to the group, "Thanks to you we managed to hit Cerberus with a direct strike, so this proves that they are the best duo." Nagi is truly impressed by the success of the plan, especially the moment when the beast was crushed by pressure at sea depth levels. When the threat is neutralized, the group decides it is time to regroup and gather with the rest of the squad. The elders all wait, bow their heads. They know, our guys just saved their lives. Hiramu asks if the monster has disappeared forever, and the sage confirms. It was locked in an isolated space. They lock the orb in a high-level vault, sealing it with ancient runes. The ladies are still trembling from shock, and say that the shockwaves from the fight reached them miles away. One of the younger sages admits, honestly, that monster was incredibly terrifying. This triggers a short lore drop about how the sages are essentially the top players of this world. They have honed magic over centuries. As the meeting comes to an end, Agatsuma says he is worried about what the demon people are doing now. The sagas start logging out one by one, thanking Nagi and Hiramu for their carry. They all say goodbye and head back to their respective zones. Even the elegant lady sage is ready to go home after that exhausting raid. Before the old witch sage leaves, she gives Nagi a special gift. It is a bottle of Evoluta divine medicine that she mixed herself. It is almost a cheat code, also known as wish drug, because it grants everything the user truly desires. She warns them, as long as they do not seek the destruction of the world, everything will work. But there is a catch, it is a one-time use item. She admits that she has already used her wish, so now the potion is no longer useful to her. Now she gives it to Nagi, because she trusts him to use this gacha ranking reward properly. Hiro asks if he has any cherished dream, and Nagi is momentarily covered by deep thought. For a moment, he wonders whether to use it to return to his original world. He remembers how he felt when he first arrived. He just wanted to rest and go home. And looking back at all the friends he made, his thinking completely changed. He realizes he has no intention of returning. He has already fallen in love with this world and the people who live in it. Hiro admits that he also had no idea while they enter the twilight. Nagi asks the head of the sages for one more thing before they leave. He is looking for a top spear, not for himself. He wants to give it to someone special. Let's move to that night under the full moon. We see little Helio working hard on training, still trying to master his basic equipment. Neji drives up and suddenly appears in front of the boy, meeting him at the doorstep of the house. Helio is simply happy to see that his mentor is safe and sound. Nagi tells him that he brought a souvenir from the Cerberus raid. He extends the legendary spear, and the boy can hardly believe his own eyes. But as soon as the second Helio touches it, the weapon turns into a rusty piece of junk. The poor boy thinks he broke it, but Nagi reveals the legend of the spear Theoxis. This sword was used by a legendary hero, and it reveals its true power only when it recognizes its owner. He tells Helio, if he continues to hone his skill and train, the spear will eventually acknowledge him and flare up again. Helio is now fired up, swearing to do everything in his power. Nagi tells the child to rest, because recovery is also part of this grind. When the day comes to an end, you can see Fluffy Paws kneading the earth. And at the end of the day, a poignant shot. A white tiger and winged tiger cubs peacefully sleep, snort, and purr after a long day. Calm moods are a luxury we cannot afford right now, as we intently watch the quiet outskirts of the city. Our Nagi and the team are just relaxing, when a letter from Yona finally arrives. Nagi immediately dives into updates to see how his former partner is doing in the big league. It turns out this guy is here grinding and polishing non-stop 24/7 under the watchful eye of Lady Anya, leader of the Holy Knights. He is not solo, he is part of a tight-knit party of 4 other heroes blessed by the gods. We review the full list of elite talents. There is Marshall, who has a cheat code for weather control, Kinia, a master of alchemy, and Menelis, who can actually create an entire forest with her plant magic. Then you have the absolute powerhouse from the Renil group, a fire hero, whom Yona looks up to as the best example. Yona is determined to reach the highest level and writes that he will definitely become a great hero. Returning home, the rest of the squad feels the pressure to keep up with this growth. Nagi is simply happy that the boy is establishing good connections and is not yet broken by intensive training. A touching moment is cut short when Philly drives up and shows a serious facial expression. Score-obsessed Kreswav Academy, character First Iron Gate Reform School. She drops a huge bombshell. Her team has found a dungeon hidden deep in the forest. In this world, dungeons are essentially gotcha machines for rare resources, but at the same time a political nightmare. They can bring wrath upon themselves from every neighboring country. Philly played it smart and did not let the news leak. She gathered her entire scout team together and ordered them absolute secrecy. She didn't even try to go inside instead. She decided to first return to Nagi and report to get instructions. Nagi begins to rummage through his imaginary wiki table, recalling, dungeons come in two clear types: natural and artificial. Natural ones are essentially mana overload zones that form in fields or mountains depending on the environment. But artificial ones are much more insidious. They are built by dungeon masters, constructing multi-layered towers or underground labyrinths. Although natural places are great for growing raw materials, it is the artificial ones where the legendary drop hides, but they are also filled with deadly traps. Nagi understands. If it is a natural dungeon, states will crawl over it in wars for the harvest, and if artificial, it could be a trap set by demonic creatures. The very next day, they decide to search the perimeter to understand what they are dealing with. When the group breaks through the dense windfall, the air begins to change. They have officially reached the heart of the naturally formed dungeon. The landscape simply blows your mind. The flowers are so bright and swollen that it seems they will give you a poison debuff just by looking. All this is thanks to the insane density of magical energy permeating the soil. Suddenly, Nagi notices something huge: a tree with a faded ancient face carved right into the bark. Philadelphia is on the highest alert, but Nagi recognizes the creature immediately. It is a treant, a legendary type of plant monster, usually calm until you anger it. It is practically an endangered species. People constantly harvested them for magical staffs and their fruits that enhance power. Realizing that they have stumbled upon a real goldmine of rare materials here, Nagi decides to return and calculate everything in advance before this place becomes public knowledge. Under the crescent moon above the city, a high-level council gathered to discuss the discovery. The leaders are stunned that such a gigantic manovel existed so close to home. The debate heats up whether they should even try to clear the zone. Some participants already see huge profit potential from the rare flowers and materials. The general opinion is this: removing it is mandatory. However, Etna literally broke out in a sweat from fear that the news would leak out. She knows human greed is no joke, and fears that other countries will try to seize their territory as soon as they learn about the loot. The room is divided because they cannot properly exchange these resources without attracting outside attention. The Lamia representative proposes trading only with their current allies to keep everything low-key. Nagi notices Etna is too cautious because she is still wary of how people behave with power. The gnome in the room essentially tells everyone to relax because no one is stupid enough to provoke Great Spirit Nagi. After a sleepless night, they decide to reveal the discovery only to the Dragonkin, Finrelth, and the kingdoms of Judal. They know as soon as high-level items start circulating, no secrets will last forever. Instead of hiding everything and undermining trust, they will play a diplomatic game with their allies, and Nagi will act as an absolute deterrent against any states that try to interfere. The next morning, a group of seasoned fighters is sent as an official team for the raid. The younger children go completely crazy because they are not allowed to join the party. Nagi must explain that inside, even deeper, there can be high-level monsters that can destroy them with a single blow. As a compromise, he agrees to take them to the outskirts to set up mob grinding and help defend the city. They also bring Balagius with them for additional fire support. The children behave as if this is a huge grand adventure. While they are all warmed up and eagerly rushing to start training, some disgusting-looking scrap mobs are already prowling in the darkness. The squad fell asleep in the forest during the training they so lacked, while Rudo and Helio honed their synergy. Suddenly, Rudo's spider senses tingled. He caught a suspicious rustle in the thicket. Even before the threat can manifest, Nagi orders everyone to duck while he prepares a counterplay. Rudo does not hesitate. With a sharp shout, he releases a stream of water magic under pressure. He is completely focused. He poured all his mana into the first move. A pair of nasty goblins receive a complete defeat from a sudden water splash. Helio immediately checks if Lord Nagi is okay, but our guy is calm as always. He is actually secretly impressed by how the kids are leveling up their combat skills. Nagi decides it's better to retreat and wait until the guys gain all the XP. But suddenly Balagius notices another presence sneaking somewhere nearby. More trash mobs are sneaking along the tray line, and they are clearly not friendly. Nagi warns the group, if they get surrounded it's a one-way ticket, the game ends here. He says to keep their distance. But Rudo notices, in this shootout the trap doesn't only have goblins. A pack of goblins is driving a defenseless victim deeper into the thicket. It turns out to be a tiny winged creature resembling a kitten, and it clearly shows terrible debuffs. Rudo is ready to draw attention to himself to save her, despite Helio warning about the tactical risk of falling into an ambush. Rudo can't just stand, cry, and shout that if they don't hurry, the child will die. When his friends resolve the situation, Helio decides to burst into the fight so they can clear the lobby together. Nagi gives them the green light and promises to intervene if things get suspicious. The duo cuts into the fight without any delay. Rudo shoots water straight into the ugly goblin's face, and Helio twists the maneuver, preparing to finish with a spear. Helio kicks into action and lands a precise strike that confuses the monster. The goblins start screeching piercingly as soon as their health bars hit 0. The last wave of magic spreads in waves across the clearing while the kids give their all. Rudo finishes off the last scattered ones with a well-aimed burst of elemental power. When the area is cleared, the boys finally catch their breath and survey the battlefield. They immediately rush to the unconscious creature, and Ruto almost begs it not to give up. Nagi steps forward with elite healing, instantly sealing all the little one's wounds. Even when the physical injuries are gone, the creature still looks completely exhausted and without a drop of energy. Rudo decides that it is simply hungry, so he offers his own lunch to help it recover. A small fluffy ball cautiously sniffs the bread. Suddenly it grabs the food and rushes to the nearest cave entrance. The crew decides to follow it to find out what is really happening in this darkness. They step over the cave threshold and hear the echo of creatures darting along the damp wall. Somewhere deep inside, the baby quietly places the bread before a much larger figure. It pushes the food toward her father, hoping they will gather together for a shared meal. She relentlessly clings with her paws to her father, begging for any reaction. But the truth is cruel. The father is only a cold, decaying skeleton. Realization hits the group like a truck as they watch the infant mourn its fallen relatives. The poor thing eventually collapses from exhaustion and grief. Rudo completely loses self-control, eyes fixed on the tragic scene in shock. Nagi points to the harsh truth of this world and says that this child will not survive alone. Helio is worried about the possible danger if a wild beast is brought into the city, but Rudo does not even think about retreating. He looks at the orphan and says, "This child is just like me." He remembers how he would have disappeared if Nagi had not intervened and saved him. Rudo begs Nagi to allow him to take full responsibility for the life of this little one. Seeing Rudo's determination, Nagi gives her blessing and trusts the boy's heart. They find time to build a proper memorial for the deceased father or mother down to a small drawing on a stone. Rudo beams with pride and declares that from this day he is the big brother of the little creature. Then we move to another training ground. There a heavy Gaglet smashes with furious strength in a strike. The instructor, Mrs. Ania, stops the session for Yona and Renil. The two boys are completely exhausted from the harsh training and sit down to catch their breath. Yona was angry at his performance. Today he managed to score only 1 point against Raniel. During the sparrings, he is truly impressed by how incredibly Renil performs. Renio responds with a compliment acknowledging that Yona himself is gradually becoming a beast. He says that Yona has a rare talent both in spirit magic and in fencing. Yona beams with the news that his efforts are bearing fruit. However, when Yona swore to shorten the distance between them, Renil's gaze remains filled with deep sorrow, one that hints much more is happening beneath the surface. The silence of the mansion shatters instantly. A sudden brutal blow thunders through the halls and echoes in every corner. Rudo and our guy rush to the place from where the sounds came but encountered chaos, debris flying everywhere. Hiding in the shadows behind the furniture, a small tiger cub growls as if it is about to bite to the bone anyone who comes too close. But this is not just some wild kitten, this is a Eukaryon, a legendary species with white furry wings and a magical eye on the forehead, which grants them unique random abilities. Nad tries to stay calm and reaches out to lure the little beast from its hiding place. This cub has zero calm and immediately lunges forward, biting directly into Naga's hand while Rudo watches in complete panic. Eventually Rudo manages to catch this sharp, fluffy bundle, but it definitely scratches him with all its might. He takes at least some chip damage because it keeps biting him. "Oh, don't bite me," he begs, although the little bear cub is clearly just confused by the new environment. Since there is no instruction on how to raise a legendary creature, the group is essentially acting blindly. Rudo realizes that they need professional help and suggests going to the city to consult with the leading students of Agatsumi. They found Neo and Luo, two researchers who look like they have spent more time among books than under the sun. Only they hear the words Yukari on cube, and their eyes light up as if they just pulled a triple SSR in 110 pull. They say there are so few eukaryotes that any observations are almost legends, not to mention finding a cube. Nagi has to set boundaries. The cube is still too wary for full scientific observation. The students are disappointed, but agree to wait compiling what they have read from ancient texts. These creatures are top-level predators who almost never leave their territory. Their magic eye is a real prophet. It can pierce debuffs like petrification, illusions, or even outright invisibility. To help the cubs settle faster, the apprentices say they might need a specific item to bridge the communication gap. They waited for the dungeon expedition team to return with rare materials to advance their medical research. Rudo is extremely desperate. He needs a way to truly understand what the cube feels. LL Well mentions a potion of beastly intelligence that works as a universal translator for animals. The only catch is that the materials are incredibly hard to get. Perhaps they are hidden deep in the dungeon. Meggy decides that they will check the expedition team's loot as soon as they return. For now, they return to check the cube. It is still sitting a complete shut-in under the furniture. No one touched the food or milk, and the cube looks as if some harsh mood debuffs are falling on it. Nagi tells Rudo to give her some space. He knows that such closeness cannot be rushed. Rudo holds her head high and promises to wait until the little tiger finally opens his heart. The next day, Philly and the entire expedition team finally roll back to the city after a successful raid. She greets Nagi with a giant smile, boasting about the loot that would make any farmer envious. They captured Oron nectar, a valuable ingredient used for evolution elixirs. Nagi examines the sapphire leaf, a top-class material capable of dispelling even the most terrible evil curses. Philly begins to lay out her strategy for the dungeon, explaining how they set up the base to start grinding. Lower tiers swarmed with trash mobs of insect-like creatures, giant ants and mantises. Nagi is surprised that he hadn't encountered them earlier, but Philly explains. The aura of great spirits probably drove them into hiding. The team managed to collect a bunch of poison and shells from these bugs. They also came across plant-type monsters, dryads and oranies, and quickly dealt with them to gather more loot. These materials are incredibly rare on the market, so the team is holding a real goldmine in their hands. Neon, Neo, and Lual are tall, which means they can finally craft various high-level medicines. Philly estimates that there are about 100 monsters in the dungeon, and they will all eventually respawn, so there will be a constant flow of materials. Between trance and herbs, she rates the dungeon as high quality. Nagi repeats the rank and realizes how valuable their accidental find is. He recalls that the Guild for Dungeons has a two-stage ranking system, difficulty and loot quality. Difficulty is divided into 5 levels from lowest to highest. Trophies are classified by quality, from poor to the best. Since they are sitting on a high-quality gold-bearing mine, Nagi decides that it's time to give this place a proper name instead of just calling it that dungeon. All the students they ask their lord to give a name that matches its characteristics. Nagi pauses and imagines the place. He recalls bright flowers and that only a chosen few can reach them. He remembers giant plant monsters guarding the groves. He brings up the topic of the secret domain of plant beastmen, and the team is thrilled by the vibe. Just as they start planning the next expedition, Nagi's gamer intuition begins to tingle. He suddenly feels a sharp wave in the air. A flash of spiritual energy lashes at him, and his eyes widen. He realizes something is very wrong. He senses that one of his contracted spirits is in mortal danger. These are not tough fighters like Suiko or Yona. This is someone much more vulnerable. It's Rue, the very first acquaintance he ever assigned to help a young boy named Lumina. We see a brief flash of Lumina, now older, who desperately tries to protect himself using water magic. The village is being torn apart by monsters, and the screams of people fill the air. Lumina is drenched in sweat from fear as a terrible monster, resembling a squid, looms over him. The monster's aura is pure nightmare, and the boy freezes in fear as it prepares to strike. He tries to block, but the monster's force overwhelms everything, and it knocks him off his feet. Just as the monster is about to finish him off, Naga's presence manifests as if a god is literally descending onto the battlefield. With a single smooth motion, he creates a giant sphere of water, trapping the monster and shielding Lumina. Flicking his wrist, he crushes the monster with the power of water pressure, and it flies back to the respawn screen in a bloody explosion. Nagi quietly settles down, picking up a glowing shard left behind by the beast, a smaller water spirit that had been corrupted. Lumina looks up, tears streaming down his face as he recognizes his savior. Nagi shifts his gaze to Rue. He looks incredibly battered after so many blows. The situation is grim. People lie wounded all over the village, but Nagi releases a burst of healing light and the wounds close instantly. People call it a miracle, but Nagi quietly signals Lumina to keep his true identity in the shadows. Despite the rescue, the village is in terrible condition. Houses are leveled to the ground and the land is all scarred. Nagi looked at the ruins, and with each second his face hardened, he realized that this cannot just be left as it is. Narsha and Lumina's mother rushed away, breathing a sigh of relief. Their boy is already in his body after that monster attack. Narsha completely does not understand anything. A stranger in a hood stands nearby and asks Big Brother who is that. A nostalgic bomb hits Lumina. He suddenly understands. When Nagi first saved them, his younger sister was still a child, so she doesn't even remember his face. Lumina maintains a professional tone, introduces him as Lord Neji, the one who saved his life years ago. Everything sharply changes course when the village elders call a meeting to decide what step to take next. This is a harsh reality check for our boy as he watches bodies being moved on and realizes many did not have plot armor to survive until his arrival. Nagi just sits relaxed on a crate while Lu swims nearby and waits for Lumina to finish his business with the survivors. Finally, Lumina catches up to him and apologizes for the wait. Nagi is interested in the growth spurt and radiant abilities, noticing the connection he has with the little water spirit. He was struck that during that last fight, Lumina used real spirit magic. Lumina begins to recall how Lee was essentially his guardian angel from the day he met Nagi. Even when his mother just cut her finger with scissors, Lu was already in the shadows doing his job. His mother always thought it was just some random mercy of the spirit, and never knew that the real MVP was right here himself. Lumina had dreamed for years to finally see the spirit that protected his family and personally thank him. On his 7th birthday, he finally drew the legendary lot. A mysterious mark appeared on his handand, only then could he finally see Lo's sweet face. It was then that the merchant Philly rolled through everything and things got really interesting. Philadelphia, being an elf, immediately noticed the spirit and the contract mark on Lumina's right hand. She was really glowing with inspiration, saying, maybe then you feel everything truly and lose connection and it happened naturally. Philly is not some random NPC. As an elf, she can use spirit magic even without a contract. She offers to teach Lumin all the subtleties so he can become a top mage like Nagi. In the present, Lumina clenches his hands and feels like he's still some low-level newbie because he couldn't figure out that last boss on his own. He says that this monster is on a completely different level than anything he has ever seen. Nagi reveals a dark legend. It was a water spirit's crystal that demons transformed into a killing machine. The threat of demons is rapidly increasing worldwide, and even neglected villages like this one are now becoming targets. Neji looks Lumin in the eyes and says that since Lu is like a native child to him, he values Lumin just as highly. He tells the boy, so if you ever find yourself in trouble, rely on me. Lumin did not hesitate. He bowed his head and begged Lord Nagi save this village. It is heartbreaking to see him fall apart and tell that they have lost so many people, and their food supplies are completely destroyed. He is all sweaty, afraid for his people. If another wave of monsters hits, they will die of hunger. The situation is terrible. About 20 men remain alive to protect a group of injured women and children. Nagi understands that simply relocating them to his lake will not work. The dark elves there will lose their peace upon seeing humans. He makes a call for everyone to move forward and places his hand on the head of the crying boy. He promises to support them so they can rebuild their home from scratch. Nagi understands. If some random stranger just starts giving things away for free, the peasants might suspect something bad. He decides to show his true form as a great spirit to make the transition easier. The next day, Lumina brings him to the village elder and Nagi drops a bomb. I am Nagi, the great spirit of water. To confirm these words, Lumina explains. Nagi was the one who, a few years ago, cured his mother's incurable disease. The crowd stunnedly froze, not understanding why they should meet some literal god. Nagi keeps everything modest, saying that he is simply fulfilling a contract that Lumina made with her familiar. As soon as the right moment comes, the support squad arrives, wagons full of loot. Philadelphia and a burly dwarf named Garu jumped outside ready to take on everything, from delivering supplies to repairing buildings. As soon as the cavalry arrives, the entire cell instantly falls prostrate, a full kowtow to show their respect. Nagi tells them to calm down and raise their heads, because food is more important than his own ego. He makes the village elder responsible for distribution. He does not know the layout of the area. When the peasants begin to get full, the mood completely changes, from despair to hope. Lumina approaches Nagi, and she feels a bit sorry that she revealed his secret identity to everyone. But Nagi doesn't mind. He is simply happy to see Lumina's family healthy and sincerely grateful. Even the younger sister Nasha finally remembers the spirit who saved her when she was a baby. No one gives her caring advice to stick together as a family, and she responds with the biggest smile. Suddenly, a loud rumble breaks the moment Garrod begins to smash the house. Nagi, what the heck, why did you do that? That house could still be used. And the dwarf has a broader plan. He shows the blueprints for a grand upgrade of the village's architecture. Now you can only sweat from the dwarf's enthusiasm for a complete reconstruction. As the sun sets over the ruins, restoration is in full swing, and hope finally begins to take root in the village.